Gary J. Tunnicliffe joins us this morning on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. More threats of a 4-hour JJ Abrams Star Wars cut. And a little bit more as we celebrate this hump day here on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. Good morning, Andre. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing the best I can with what I got, and that's all they're going to get from me. And joining us, of course, as I mentioned in the intro, is the one, the only Gary J. Tunnicliffe. How you doing?
I'm good, guys. It's great to see you both. I love doing this stuff. I love doing my
great to have you back.
Brady Bunch shit, you know.
Dun, 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 dun,
dun. I'm very well, thank you. It's nice to be here as always. I'm good.
What you been working on lately? Anything new or just?
I'm doing some writing, and I sculpted a new piece which I just released. But I'm heading back to Los Angeles early May, so got my vaccinations and all that malarkey, and hopping on a plane, and then of course, as is always the way, as soon as you make a trip to, like you've set a flight in. I just said I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to go so I can get some sushi and hang out and do that. Of course, the phone rings and someone says, "Yeah, you're not in LA, are you? Because we might need a so-and-so." So, there might be a possible project happening. So we shall see.
Awesome.
More news to follow. Yeah.
Can't wait to hear about that. And we just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. We got some of our regulars here. Hello, hello, hello. While we lost Andre, he'll be right back. I think he's having some net issues. We got a new member. Thank you so much, Bashy Washy. We appreciate you being a member. We got here as well. We'll get to the super chats as we get going, but we got that 70s rock fan. We got Donkey Source Rex. We got Silver Nova. We got Sander Hammerslag hanging out with us. Thank you so much for being here. We got Spider Unlimited. We've got, look at all these people we got. We got, who do I recognize here? Some people I don't recognize. So welcome to those who I don't recognize, but maybe you changed your name and I just don't realize it. But Jason Gallagher, that's one I recognize. That's for sure. House Atreides, of course. We got Mike and Aaron's, of course, here as well. Welcome, welcome. We got the Twinkie Kid. We got Six hanging out in the house. How you doing? We got our lovely Wrench Natasha hanging in there. How you doing? And we got Billy D himself and so many more hanging in there. Good morning, good morning. As soon as Andre gets back, we'll talk a little bit about the news. We'll get into some super chats and all that good stuff. But Gary, have you seen any new movies lately? Have you been able to catch any of the like Godzilla versus Kong or anything like that?
Nope, and not available in my part of the world. So
yes, that's right.
One of the reasons for me heading back to LA is to catch up on some movies as well. I've been just catching up a lot of old movies, kind of catching up on stuff that I haven't seen for a while, and I've been working, so I've been having movies playing repeated in the background. I did tell you last time we spoke, I did end up watching Blade Runner 2049 about 50, 60 times, and it makes a lot more sense to me. It's good, But I've had movies playing on the background. My wife tends to go to work and then comes back and goes, "You're still watching this movie?" And I'll go, "No, it's been on all day, just playing." So I had The Gentleman on for 3 days in a row, to the point where now I can actually recite the entire thing. So it's quite funny. Sometimes it's good to just hear dialogue, rotating. But then when I write, I have to have complete silence. I can't have I can have music with no lyrics, but I can't have music with lyrics. Andre, you're back.
Yes, I'm back again, and hopefully the internet is not going to die out on me this time. So that should be all good and well. No, it's good to hear that you've been keeping busy, and look forward to seeing the results of all of that writing. So that should be brilliant. And in addition to Gary, we have some other people with us today as well.
Did say hello to pretty much everybody, but go ahead if you want to as well.
Yeah, so greetings everyone.
But he doesn't say just the way you do it.
He'll get there. He's got to do the super chats. I was just going to send him that way, but he can say thank you to Chris Bailey for becoming a member. Thank you so very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So yeah, we have memberships now. So welcome as a member, and to those wondering, for Crom level members, the first reading of Norse mythology by yours truly is due later today. So yeah, look forward to that. And we have Valiant Renegade, who also says good morning and hello, chat, which is something I agree with completely. And we also have a couple of super chats, one that I can get up on screen right away, which pertains to the topic that we will be discussing today, is Goskar Farlat, who says, release the JJ cut. Please, God, no. Haven't we suffered enough? So, yeah, quite a lot of enthusiasm just for the topic there. We also have a Planar Aspect who says, I don't want a new cut from Mr. Vacuumed a Son. So, not a lot of enthusiasm. And Eric O'Sullivan said, for $15, thank you so much. I read the Rise of Skywalker novelization. Didn't help one bit. Marvel cancelled the comics adaptation. Wow. Imagine if you wanted to complete your collection, eh? The Return of Skywalker cannot be saved by a clever edit. It's bad. Skull. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. And we'll get into that momentarily. But first, we have a few more super chats to catch up with. As you can see on screen there, we got one from Panzer Croc, who says, an Abrams cut of the Ruse of Skywalker. Hell no. You can't put a shine on a turd. I'd rather have a root canal without Novocaine. Hail Midnight. So I have to say it's a very, very different response to even the mention of a JJ cut compared to, for instance, the Snyder cut. Or like this to me seems like the response to the Paul Feig cut of Ghostbusters. Which again wasn't a serious thing. It was mentioned when we first got the Snyder Cut. Luckily, that didn't happen. But yeah, the response was equally negative. But I'm going to go through a couple of older super chats that I can no longer bring up on screen.
Please call them classic now.
Yes, the classic super chats.
It's so problematic.
Oh yeah, okay, fine. Chronologically gifted super chats. I
like classic.
We can say that. Yeah. Stephanie Yanisek Smuggler's Cantina started us out today saying, there are a few things about the JJ cut, but I'd like to know, but I really don't care about it because it's JJ and it's trash. And Sean Carter speaks for us all, I believe, when he says, I don't want a JJ cut of a movie. I want JJ cut from all movies. And Matt G points out, this is awkward because they're still shooting episode 9.
That is true.
And T Neil 89 says, ahoy hoy from behind the kale curtain of Los Angeles gentlemen. Well, hello. And Stephen Otten says, hail Midnight's Edge, wrenches and everyone in the chat. So far, everything today has screamed, ah. I suspect this news will be no different. Yeah, well, we'll see if we can bring something else up to lighten the mood as the show goes on. And Silver Nova says, I suggest we cut a hole in the fabric of space-time and then force JJ through it at a gunpoint. Well, let's keep guns out of the picture, but beyond that, I agree with the sentiment. Hypergiver 2 says, destroy the JJ cut, destroy the sequel trilogy, and destroy everything JJ ever touched. Brother, get the flamer, the heavy flamer. And then, Gary, you had been waiting for this. Says, hi, gents. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And Mike in Ayers says, could the theatrical cut have never meant to be canon, but KK had final cut, and the JJ cut was always on the cards? 9 had no merch either. I will get into that because it's all connected. And House Atreides says, when Kylo used the Force to stop the laser bolts, I was like, WTF. Then came Starkiller Base, and I was done. Garbage is garbage, no matter how you cut it. With that, we are pretty caught up. Just going to recheck that there haven't come anything in the last seconds while I was reading. And there has. Ty Remmers says, is there a cut where everyone dies? Also, what about the Lucas cut? Wonder how bonkers that one might be. Yeah, hold that thought. And Lord Tom, what's it, Lord Trinan? How was that?
No, it was Trinan, you're right.
Trinan.
No, Trinan.
Yeah, Lord Trinan. Yeah, because I want to say Trinan, and it's not that. So Lord Trinan says for $10. A friend told me this morning that some people on Twitter are trying to use Revan to gatekeep new fans and complain that the fandom is too toxic now. Did Lucasfilm succeed in creating toxic fans?
I knew that was going to come up.
Oh, yeah. And then Valiant Renegade says, I presume that the Rise of Skywalker JJ cut is the same as what was previously rumored as the Lucas cut, since George was brought in to help as per his contract. And then we are caught up. So, Tom, tell us, what's going on here? Why are we suddenly having to deal with the possible JJ cut of the Rise of Skywalker, which, unlike the Snyder cut of Justice League, is something that no one wants?
To be honest, as far as I know, I haven't really dug into it or anything because I have zero fucks to give about this shit like Koala in the Rain. But basically, I guess there's more rumors coming out of Reddit. I'm assuming they're probably coming from the same camp that was last December or the year before, whatever it was, that was all like, oh, there's a better version of this movie, but Disney made JJ cut it down and all this kind of crap. And they're trying to push this again because I'd assume that buzz going around that the Snyder cut did well, so JJ wants to save some face for some reason, because really this is the only smirch he's got on his resume besides Into Darkness, as far as Into Darkness did well box office wise, but he kind of had to come back and say, yeah, it was kind of stupid to do it the way we did it. And this is the only one he hasn't come back and said anything about yet, so I'm assuming he'll try and, if this is true, and my guess is this is coming from inside his camp, because it's all like, JJ was screwed over, blah, 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 blah.
Well, it's certainly not coming from the fans. I'm fairly certain of that. But I mean, this is nothing organic like the Snyder.
No, this rate's right above, if not right around the same area that the 3 or 4 hour Ghostbusters 2016 cut is.
The Paul Feig cut. Yeah,
more people will pay for them not to make it than they will to watch it. So,
Gary, do you believe in the existence of a JJ Abrams cut? And if so, how excited would you be to see it?
Okay, let's get into this, shall we? First of all, anyone who doesn't want to see a JJ Abrams cut, don't fucking watch it if it comes out. No one's holding a gun to your head. No one's making you eat this thing. So if you don't want to watch it, go away and don't watch it. The truth of the matter is, if there's I thought The Rise of Skywalker, as I've said before, was probably the best it could be, trying to sew up what was a middle film that screwed everything up. We know it wasn't JJ's plan. His plan was to do the second film and the third film, and then the abysmal, I can't even remember the name of it, that bloody awful woke shit in the middle. that basically did away with all of the ideas that JJ set up in The Force Awakens. So, I mean, he was basically handed a big bag of, bits and pieces and then tried to fix it together. So we do know that there's supposed to be some really good stuff. I mean, didn't Kevin Smith say he witnessed a scene that would melt your mind that was being filmed when he was on set, and that's the original ending that was shot? So, I mean, I thought Rise of Skywalker was okay. I thought it had some okay moments in it, had some nice moments, and it had some lackluster moments in it. And I'm not right now kind of like, I was kind of like, I'm done with it all, you know what I mean? It's a bit overplayed. But if somebody told me tomorrow, hey, there's a better version out there, do you want to see it? I'll take a look at it. Why wouldn't I? I mean, why wouldn't anyone who's a fan of this legacy be interested in something? If it's possibly a better version. Why not take a look? What harm is it going to do? It's not going to hurt you unless physically we're going to have to suffer a pain barrier or something. So why not take a look at it? It's like the Snyder Cut. I'm not a great believer in Zack Snyder. I think Zack Snyder's everything shot at super high slow motion. I went back and watched Dawn of Justice, the Superman versus Batman movie, and it's shit. Zack does some terrible stuff. And I'm glad that people have enjoyed the Snyder Cut. I wasn't particularly kind of cheering for it, but again, I'll watch it eventually when I get to LA. I'll watch it because why wouldn't I? I'll give the guy a chance, and I love seeing superheroes beat each other up. And if you tell me it's better than the original cut, then yeah, sure, I'll take it. I'll take a gander at it. It's either going to be better or it's going to be worse. But I wouldn't just kind of cut my nose off my own face and say, no, I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to. It's like, why not? If there's a better Star Wars out there and it's JJ's cut or George's cut. And all I know is that everyone's hugely generally against Kathleen Kennedy. And we know for a fact that Kathleen Kennedy was the person who cut a lot of these sequences out of JJ's cut. So why not give the guy a chance to show you what he's got? Like I say, it's only either going to be good or bad. What have you got to lose?
Yeah, that's actually a fair point.
Star Wars gave me herpes, though.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Star Wars gave me herpes.
Don't watch it, Tom. You don't have to.
I don't want to watch anymore.
So many people. I mean, God, people are so into, all over the world are into this stuff, and we'll buy a cereal box if it's got Star Wars on it. It doesn't make it good cereal, but people will get it. But if you tell me, I mean, what if it's like anything. If someone said to you, hey, there's a Hellraiser, like my movie or any movie that I thought was not very good. If someone said, hey, they've just recut it and it's got some better stuff in it. Look, I mean, I've been involved with films and a lot of great stuff gets put on the edit room floor, for reasons, logistical reasons or length reasons. I always think with these situations where you have an extended cut of the great, I'll chew it up. A lot of people don't like the original David Lynch Dune. I happen to really like it. And when there was a long cut, I gobbled it up because it's like, oh, more of that. I'll take it. Thank you very, very much. So if there are potential sequences, and I've heard about this apparently mind-mending end sequence, the forging of the double lightsaber that Rey has, which is the two blades of Leia and Luke. There's some interesting concepts out there that you go, okay. If I'm sitting at home one night and if it's available to watch and it's the 3-hour cut, JJ Abrams, I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a chance. Why not? It's not going to cost me anything unless someone's going to hold a gun to my head and say, you've got to give me $100 right now. What have I got to lose but 3 hours of my life? But the potential of
that's give me $100 and watch the movie. That would be the ultimate insult, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's like
but yeah, no, that's
it's like I've always said. It's like when people said about, I always go back to the same story. When there was going to be a remake of Dawn of the Dead, people were up in arms. Oh my God, George Romero's classic! How dare you? Oh, it's a travesty and all this. And I was like, no one's going to come and rob you in the night of your original cut. Go away and watch it. You've got two things are going to happen. It'll either be a better film or it'll be a worse film. And as it turned out in that particular instance, I thought the Dawn of the Dead remake was a far superior film to the original. It was just more hip, cool, and nasty. It never had the same original impact as the first one because it was of a different time, but you've got nothing to lose. You've got Wait,
did you just say it was better than the first one?
Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
The remake, I think the remake's a far superior film to the George Romero film. Yeah, of course.
You know, it's amazing. You are 100% wrong. I mean, nothing you've said has been right.
Oh, geez. The Snyder version is
that one.
I mean, I can watch Dawn of the Dead. Look, you've got to get past the classicness of something sometimes. It's like, I mean, I think the Dawn of the Dead remake's a pretty damn good zombie movie, and started without a doubt a wave of brought back the zombie era, really.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
Hey, Tom, don't give me the look. I love Day of the Dead. I mean, I actually really love Day of the Dead. If we're going to do Romero stuff, I love Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead's awesome. What the fuck is Land of the Dead? I mean, Jesus Christ, what happened there? You know what I mean? I mean, Romero could be a bit hit and miss, Yeah, he's a godfather and a classic of horror, but just because of that, you don't give the guy a free pass for everything. But if you told me there was a George Romero 3-hour cut of Land of the Dead that's way better, I wouldn't go, oh, no, I'm not going to watch it. I'd go, all right, yeah, absolutely, I'll check it out. If it's potentially a better version that makes it better than George, than Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo chewing up the scenery, then I'll watch it. I'm always open to an additional cut or a director's version to at least give them a chance. I mean, I do think JJ Abrams has got slightly more credibility than Paul Feig. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I can stand behind some of JJ's previous work a bit more. Paul Feig did Bridesmaids and then did Ghostbusters and fucked it up. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's like any cut would make it any better because I don't think he was the right guy for that particular movie.
Oh,
There's nothing that JJ has ever done that's been redeemable, though, at all.
Well, the opinions are divided on that topic. But while we're on that, Tom, can you briefly relay what's the difference between a JJ Abrams cut and the proverbial Lucas cut? Because as we and our good friend Doomcock covered extensively at the time, the making of Rise of Skywalker was something of a mess in that it went through many, many different iterations to the point where the original villain, Matt Smith, was announced and he filmed scenes, and then that never happened because they completely changed the movie and brought in Palpatine instead at a relatively late stage of the game. The movie went through so many different iterations, and that's why there was no real marketing push for it, because all the characters that were there when production started, they weren't there by the time the movie finished. So they kind of like undercut third-party licensees and everything. So many different iterations of the movie. We heard that with editing, I stress with editing, a total of 6 different iterations of the movie were possible. And the one that they went with is basically the shortened theatrical version of what we now call the JJ Abrams cut. Tom, do you remember what's the difference between this JJ Abrams cut and the so-called Lucas cut?
About 45 minutes. I don't know. Like, as far as the Lucas cut, I don't even know if there is such a thing. Like, I have a hard. I was one of those on the side of I don't know about that, and that is from what I heard at most. If there was any involvement, it was just a few notes that he gave on how to edit the film, and Katee said to ignore it anyway. So, as far as the JJ cut goes, I think that I just don't. You know, the point that we made was they were shooting it. They didn't even know what they were going to have by the time the movie came out, because even the guys at, what was it, Hasbro or whatever, that were doing the toys, like flat out said that, they had a bunch of toys they couldn't sell because they were characters that didn't wind up in the final film. And that kind of confirmed even more stuff that we had heard before. And my point is, I'm not so sure there's really much of a cut to be had here that is much different than what we got. Maybe that alternate ending that Gary brought up earlier, but even that, is it really worth it? Do I really want to sit through? You know, I'm one of those. I don't really care.
There's quite substantial scenes that are very different, I've heard, and because there are scenes that George wrote with JJ, right? I mean, while we're talking about the George Lucas cut as well, I just want to ask if I was inviting you over to my house tomorrow, Tom and Andre, to say, hey, we're going to watch a couple of Star Wars movies together, and the choices you have are we can watch Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones or Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, which would you go for?
Well, if it's the theatrical version, I'd go with the prequels. Thank you very much. But that's me.
And are you paying for the plane ticket?
Yeah,
over those other two from the Disney sequels? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Really? You watched Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones over Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, Gary, if I was at your place and we were watching movies, I think that I would like to say, Gary, you have a better movie collection than that. But,
no, that's not the point, though.
But honestly, in that situation, yeah, I think I would. And I have never, ever been a defender of the prequels in any way, shape, or form. But I will say this, that they actually were about something. The execution was horrendous. But this is something that George Lucas pointed out himself, that with the prequels, he kind of like told the story of how like democracy dies in a way. So there's something of a story hidden behind all of the stupid goofery on the screen. Yeah, you have to look for it a bit because there's so much distracting drivel. Whereas in the sequels, do you really have that there, or is it a more flashy, glitzy retread of the original Episode 4 in the case of The Force Awakens, and then an ode to wokeness in the second one, and then the third one is basically one filmmaker giving the finger to another filmmaker for $200 million. And of course, there's like some fun in that, but I have no need. Well, basically, I have no need to rewatch any of them ever again under any circumstance. But if I had to choose, I think I would have more fun trying to find the subtext and the story beats underneath that's hidden in the subtext of the prequels than the sequels, which are flashy pictures, but beyond that, nothing.
That blows my mind, and for all of you out there who said you to the prequels, I am stunned.
Well, you didn't even do a fair. You didn't even
watching characters talk about trade embargoes, a kid with a goofy Jar Jar Binks, and
Well, I'll be real.
That's what I'm saying. That's bullshit that there's in the front, and there you have like the game trying to see past all that and try to decipher the story underneath, which again, it's really clunky and it's horribly executed, and the ambition was far greater than the execution in every way possible. But still, I would argue that there's more to it. There's more layers to pick apart there than there are in the sequel trilogy, which is flashy effects on screen. But beyond that, there's not much there.
And I got to ask why you picked the first and the third of the Disney trilogy, but then went just to the first two of the prequels, because obviously, Attack of the Clones is too strong of a film to resist when it comes to that.
I said prequel. I said Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I didn't say Revenge of the Sith because I thought that was, again, I always thought for me, Phantom Menace was a 2. Attack of the Clones was a 5, and then I can't remember the name of it now. The third one was like a solid 6 or 7.
I'd reverse the first two, but yeah, that's about where I'm at anyway. But no, like I don't know.
And then Force Awakens. I mean, when Force Awakens came out, I thought it was a reasonable popcorn crunchy kind of movie. Yeah, it was a reimagining of in certain ways, but it was for a new audience. But it was technically well made. It had some interesting stuff in it. I mean, I still think Kylo Ren was a good villain, you know, and you know, had some reasonable.
It had a lot of promise. It had a lot of promise.
Yeah, it was a good base
will
to build
grant
on, but unfortunately, Ryan
Yes.
Johnson threw the plan out the
Yeah,
window.
yeah, Kathleen Kennedy and Ryan Johnson happened. I still say that The Force Awakens was a strong start. It really was. It was exactly what Bob Iger wanted it to be. It was a retread of
It
Star
doesn't
Wars. going
stand
back
up
to
as
the
much,
classic.
though.
No, it doesn't. But I think it would have had it not been for it being completely derailed in the next movie. So yeah, like if
The
it
big
had a
difference, though,
strong
I will say
follow-
this, because I did a test one day, and I should have made a video out of it, but I took, because you know you can take the music out of a 5.1 mix, you know, just turn the music down.
Yeah.
So I watched the scene with Vader where he comes in for the first time. You know, the way George shot it, it's all smoky, and you got the explosion just before, and it's kind of shot at an upward angle, so Vader looks more menacing and ominous. Without the music, he still looks menacing and ominous. You take the music out of the Kylo Ren scene, it's all flat. It's all shot flat. It has no emotion. It's just a guy walking, and it's really kind of boring. It doesn't even have half of the impact, even without the music, that the Vader scene has. I mean, of course, that music swelling for the Vader scene makes it even more, you know. But you pull out that John Williams score from Kylo Ren's entrance, and it's kind of boring.
Yeah, well, but again, that's of course,
And that's just the way JJ shot it, because it's overly lit. It's all flat angles outside of when he's descending from the ship. And even then, he cuts to a side angle of it. So then you're still like, okay, why are you making 3 cuts for this guy exiting the ship? You know, you watch the first film and George just hangs there on Vader until he finally makes that cut where Vader's looking around with his, you know, arms to his side, like, hell yeah, we just fucked this place up. You know, I mean, that's, you know, it's infinitely more impactful, and it's only 2 shots. I don't know.
Yeah, but again, that's original to sequel trilogy, which again is like an unfair comparison. But yeah, I see the point there. But also, I will
Compare that even to the entrance of Darth Maul.
That The Force Awakens, strong start, but it was completely retroactively, I will also say, derailed by what came later in The Last Jedi. That retroactively messed that one up as well by killing up every single story thread. I have one final question.
I think it was that, and I mean, I think, like I say, I think, you know, like I say, I do think JJ got handed a great big kind of pile of spaghetti, and also, oh, by the way, one of your actors is dead as well. I mean, he kind of inherited a huge pile of shit. And like I say, I know it's not the greatest, but I thought by the end of it, it's like I could see it seemed to be about as salvageable as it was. So if there are, you know, he saw this finale being shot with this mind meld. Gee, I can't get my words out, can I? With this very cool ending being shot that would blow people away, and we didn't get to see that. So I am curious to see what that is. And then I've heard about other bits and pieces as well. Like I say, it's like, okay, you know, if JJ's got some stuff and wants to put it out there, then I'm willing to take a chance and blow a couple of hours watching it for the chance that I go, oh yeah, you know what, that was a lot better. Or I go, oh, it's still shit, you know, or it's not very good, you know. It's like, what have I got to lose? A couple of hours.
I'll give you this, Gary. Out of this weird, demented, like, curiosity I have for, like, generally alternate cuts, I'm usually one of those where, coming from an editor standpoint, like, to me, generally the theatrical cut 9 times out of 10 is the better version, because a lot of these unrated cuts and director's cuts and extended cuts we get, sometimes they're better, but 9 times, maybe 8 times out of 10, they're just more garbage we didn't need. Or I'm like, I can see why they cut that in the first place.
No, they can be a bit indulgent, absolutely, but I think, especially on a film like
but I'll check it out if they ever did it. But
you're talking about stuff usually. This is why I was, you know, and I'm, like I say, not a Snyder fan, but I'm curious to see the Snyder cut, because I know that you're talking about filmmaking at a very, very high budget level, and a lot of whistles and bells going into the stuff, and a lot of money going into these shots. So if there was a huge set built for this huge finale, this huge ending, then I'd like to see what the original plan was for it. You know what I mean? Like I say, I've never had a problem. I mean, I certainly wouldn't cut my nose off my own face to say, no, I'm not going to watch it. It's like,
oh no, I would check it out just out of morbid curiosity or whatever. But
it's something like Dead DC here saying about what about the Lord of the Rings specials?
Those are the exceptions, and that's Andre will bring that up all the time as one of the exceptions to the rules because like Yellow Flash. Thank you so much, and how you doing, brother? Says Lord of the Rings extended blew away the theatrical cut. Yeah, because that was the intended vision to begin with.
Exactly.
Peter Jackson knew
versions,
that. Yeah.
They are the real versions, whereas the theatrical, they were the real versions of the movie compromised for theaters. So really, you were watching the compromised version at all times, and those are the times when I, at least, am fully supportive of alternate cuts. And also, I agree with Gary. I always find it interesting with alternate cuts, especially on like high levels like this. And if a JJ Abrams cut were to come out, I actually wouldn't be opposed to it for two reasons. One, as Gary says, if you don't want to watch it, which is most people, I think, then all you'd have to do is not watch it. Let the executives at Disney see how badly it tanks on Disney Plus, and you're able to send a message that way. But what if it's better, or if it's slightly less bad?
Yeah.
Again, like there's nothing to lose with it. I don't think that any alternate cut should ever be like banned from anything. The worst that can happen is that you don't have to see it. Like loads of people were really, really dead set against the Snyder cut. Now I've been so busy that I haven't had time to see everything of it yet. I've seen 3 out of the 4 hours, and what I will say is, holy crap! What a difference! What a difference in cuts. To me, that's night and day difference between the Snyder cut and the Whedon cut. Yeah, it's the same basic story. But the execution is night and day different. And I agree with Chris Terrio and everyone that has come out and spoken. What was done in the Whedon cut was an act of vandalism and nothing short of it. And I say that as someone that has very publicly not been that big a fan of Snyder either. But I always welcome the cut just to see what he had done different. And of course, JJ was never done dirty in the way that Snyder was done dirty. But
but no, to finish what I was saying to Gary before was like, look, like I'll never watch The Rise of Skywalker again, probably. But if they did this version, that would be one of the few times I might just, like I said, out of curiosity to see what happened. And sure, it might be one of those few occasions like the Snyder cut and The Lord of the Rings, which were actually planned that way. So that's a little different. But I'll admit that. But do I want to see it? Do I think the money or the resources should be spent on it? Do I think it's going to fix anything? Do I think it's going to bring people back to Star Wars? No. If anything, it'll be some desperate move by Disney Plus to try and get some people to sign up, because rumors going around that their numbers fell behind HBO Max.
That's very interesting. If HBO Max has now overtaken Disney Plus, that would only go to show the strength of the strategy that they have put out there. If that is true, I only heard that from you right now. I don't know where you heard it from.
I've heard it from a couple different places, but if somebody can send me some actual numbers of the people that have been telling me about it, if they're listening, that'd be great. Because, that's all I can go on is just a rumor that I've been hearing it. That's all I can say.
We'll know April 22nd anyway. So.
Oh, yeah? You got something going on?
No, there's an ANT release. There's an ANT they're having a meeting on April 22nd. So we'll all know what their numbers are.
Well, they got.
But again, it doesn't matter. This is the whole thing, right? The whole thing is it doesn't matter who's winning in the streaming wars, Netflix, Disney. There's only one loser. Bye-bye cinemas. You know what I mean? Like, there's only one loser.
Well,
well, actually, Gary, you sent me an article yesterday about some major cinema chains which are out of business. Yeah, we know that AMC are doing fairly strong, but that didn't help. Who was it again? Archlight? Is that one again? These are things that we don't have here, so you have to remind me of the name.
Archlight and Regal, 300.
Yeah,
cinemas.
Archlight and Regal. So basically, they're done for, both of them.
I think someone will step in and probably take up the Cinerama Dome. You know, the Arclight in LA. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some producers jump in there.
I think a lot of studios learned after the last 2 weeks with Godzilla versus Kong to never count out cinemas. Because from everything that happened, they left a lot of money on the table. They were selling theaters out here, even though people could still watch it at home. And it's already to the point where it's going to make more money than the last movie. And theaters are only at 50% capacity. So, you know, it may not be doing so well over there, but I'll tell you over here, it's a different story.
But, you know, but again, right, it doesn't matter because the owner is still getting more revenue because they're not having to deal with the middleman. This is what it's all about. Look, I mean, the joke is that, you know, me, the guy who says that cinema's doomed, which it is, you know, and like, you know, I've always said that cinema's not going to go away completely. As I'll reiterate again for people who've never seen me before, cinema, I believe, will fall into two categories. You'll have a low budget ticket price, like a $5 ticket, you know, where you can go in and cell phone and you can text and chat and it'll be like a raging, you know, McDonald's party in there. And then you'll have the high end experience. I mean, if you said to me in 8 months time, hey, do you want to invest in a cinema, 2 screens, and we're going to serve food and drinks, and it'll be a $60 ticket night out, you know, with food and drinks, absolutely, I'd go for that. But will the $15 ticket price with rip-off concessions, you know, multiplex happen again? I don't think it will, because people will make a valid decision in their mind of stream it, go to the cinema, stream it, go to the cinema. And it's a very few movies that will pull people from a cinema. Now, again, oddly enough, me, the guy who's anti-cinema, did say the first thing I said about LA was, oh, I can't wait to go and see Kong versus Godzilla at the cinema, because it's a movie that probably lends itself to being at the cinema. You know, that's the kind of film I will absolutely go and see in the cinema. But The Social Network, quite happy to watch on my TV, you know what I mean? David Finch, I was watching the other day, someone was saying about, what do you think about the death of cinema? And he said more people saw Seven and Fight Club on a DVD than they ever saw in cinemas. It's only the romanticists holding on to this idea. And this is as more time passes and more people are just used to streaming movies and watching them and seeing them on their TVs, you know, in their home media systems, it's gonna be like the drive-in. Everybody always loves the drive-in. Oh, the drive-in's so cool, it's so fantastic, and it's wonderful, it's so nostalgic. But people didn't go, and that's why they died out, because they didn't want to go through that, you know, situation. And it'll be the same with cinemas, I believe. You know, certainly after a pandemic as well, the idea of rushing out to go and sit in a big dark room with people who might cough on you or sneeze on you, you know, I think, you know, bars and clubs and beaches and that are probably going to do a lot better. But even with the HBO Max kind of release strategy, there are only there's probably 1 or 2 movies on there. And you know what they are, guys. You could look at the list of movies and say, that I would go to the cinema to see. Matrix, yeah, I'd probably go to the cinema and see that. You know, would I go and see, you know, Trial of the Chicago 7 at the cinema and pay $12? No. I mean,
yeah, basically, the movies that we can't mention, they are probably the ones that we wouldn't go to the cinemas for. Even
Grace Randolph the other day, right, who's like, you know, on her knees sucking off cinema, going, oh my God, the cinema, it's so amazing, the holy church of going to the cinema. Even she said that she went to a local cinema and asked for, you know, a Coke and some M&Ms and paid $12 and was like, no, I just want a Coke and some M&Ms. And they were like, yeah, $12. This is what I despise about cinemas. It's being ripped off. You know, we're overpaying for concessions. You can sit in your house and have a meal and watch a movie. But the whole romantic vibe of, cinema, and someone was saying, you know, it's part of our date culture, you know, where a couple's going to meet and get together and all this. It's like, have you never Netflixed and chilled? Trust me, you're a lot more likely to get it on if you Netflix and chill. But, you know, the more it goes on, and the studios aren't complaining because, yeah, you can say, there's going to be no more billion-dollar movies, but the studios don't give a shit about that because they were giving half of that money away to the cinemas anyway. You know, we're still going to have huge budget movies, and you know, look, the HBO Max thing is working out. It's working out. Is it? Of course it is. They're going to announce you're going to see a massive leap in their numbers on April 22nd. Of course you are. You just said yourself that with they're heading towards Disney territory.
That could be, but as the headline says here, starting in 2022, they're heading back to theaters first. And as we saw in the last couple of weeks, they pushed back Top Gun and a few other things in hopes that more theaters will be open for that specific reason, because this movie showed that, wait a minute, people will go to the theater if there's something they want to see. And I think that's where Hollywood is.
Well, absolutely. But again, this is it, right? I totally agree. I didn't say that cinemas are going to go away, but like I say, I think you've only got one choice of seeing a movie. You've got to go to the cinema to go and see it. Made it so that you would go and see films that you would absolutely just stream. You know what I mean? Like I say, take a look at the list of the movies and pick the ones that you would actually get off your ass and go to the cinema. Your only choice before was you had to go and see those at the cinema. Now you have a choice. And there are certain films that are theatrical and certain films that are not theatrical. What's the list? What's the list of the 12 movies? What's the 12 releases? What's the 12, what's their slate?
Oh, for Warner Brothers next year?
No, for this year. What's the slate?
Oh, for this year?
Yeah, I know two, and those are the two that I actually would see in cinemas. So that's obviously Mortal Kombat, which I'm counting days for, and then it's or actually three then, and then it's Matrix, which honestly I wouldn't be in a rush to see in a cinema, and then there's Dune, which I'll see in.
Which I'm going to tell you right now, Gary. Yeah. I've been hearing rumors that Legendary is so pissed at the money that got left on the table that Dune is not coming to HBO Max the same time it's coming to theaters. There's going to be like a 30 or 45 day window.
Okay. But again, if you were the exec of any studio as well, for a fact, like there are certain films I'd say, look, Top Gun, the new Mission Impossible, absolutely. Should we go theatrical with these? Absolutely, we should. These are event tentpole movies that people want to see in a big screen event. But again, there are other movies that it's like, no, people will rather just stream those. Like I say, I just think the model of cinema is going to change. Cinema will become a different place. I just don't see there will be, if they continue to do day and day releasing, I think it will be the death of the multi-screen 15 cinema kind of movie house. I just don't see that they can survive. I think cinema will have to change its model.
I think the thing is that it just hasn't worked out for them. Disney hasn't been able to sell the $30 movies. All Godzilla vs. Kong did was prove that more people will go to the theaters, even though it did do a nice bump in HBO Max's numbers. You've got Legendary now breathing down their neck, and Legendary was already pissed, and threatening all kinds of shit in the press. So it's like,
even so, this is a case where you're both right, because I see exactly where Gary is coming from.
Yeah, I do too.
It's movies like Dune. They're going to continue going to cinemas, but it's all those other movies on Warner's slate. The ones that not a single one of us have been able to bring anyone up.
There was that other Conjuring movie, and
again, these are all branded stuff.
Space Jam 2, that was the other one I forgot about.
Yeah, again, these are all branded stuff. And then you have all the other movies, the smaller original ones, the Fincher type movies, that of course there's going to be like some audience for, but mostly I think that movies like that will, the theaters, 2 years from now, it's probably going to be mostly for like the big genre fare and not so much the lesser things, the Fincher type things.
Well, I think the problem is that the studios tried to jump the gun too much instead of trying to work out a new window, which the theaters were more than willing to do at the beginning of this whole thing, and that's what we're going to see coming out of this. You're going to see a 45-day window.
Fundamentally,
that's all it is.
I think fundamentally what it is from my point of view is I think cinemas got greedy and lazy. And I'm sorry, but I just think the cinema experience started severely lacking. And I got tired repeatedly and bitter, if you like, of thinking I'm going to go and see a movie at the cinema tonight, and going to a cinema thinking it's 50-50 that someone's going to be talking behind me, someone's going to be doing something on their cell phone. Am I going to have an experience that I feel like I'm paying that it's worth the money I'm paying for, which is expensive. It's not a cheap night out. You take 3 or 4 people with you, and you buy a lot of concessions. You're paying a decent amount of money. And it's sorry, but I think cinemas got lazy, and I think they rip us off. I'm sorry. I think concessions are overpriced.
Well, I'll counter that because I know a lot of people who've worked in theaters, and I'll tell you flat out, all the things that you're complaining about are a complete result of the studios getting greedier and greedier and taking more and more of the opening weekend box office. Because you got to a point where the theaters now have to give up over 70 or 80% sometimes to the big movies, and they're not getting any of that. So that's why the concessions go up. They can't afford to have enough ushers. That's why you don't have kids getting kicked out when they're on phones and shit. You have more projector problems because you don't have enough people to handle all that stuff. It just goes down the line. And again, I get where you're coming from. It does, and it could appear them being lazy, because I have my own gripes about it. But the more I've talked to people and the more I've gotten involved with it, that's really what it boils down to, is that the studios have squeezed the theaters so hard that's why they have to charge $20 for a bucket of popcorn and $10 for a soda, because that otherwise they can't pay their employees, because nobody goes to see the Avengers 3 weeks after it's out when they actually get 50% of the box office. So they get 3 people to go see the movie. They get $10 that day. That's the thing is I
was told from that the cinemas got the bulk of the money in the first.
No, I don't know who told you that shit, because that was
always the standard. That was always the standard rate, that the cinemas benefit right at the beginning, and then it starts to even out towards the studios later on.
Who told you that? It's the other way around. Because they even pay a rental fee on top of all that bullshit. That's the other thing, is you have to pay a rental fee up front, plus then the studios, especially if it's like Disney has demanded 90% of every one of their opening movies for the past X amount of years. That's why the theaters were so pissed 2 years ago when Disney had their record year in theaters, because they didn't see hardly any of that, because Disney got 90% of all their opening weekends. And it wasn't until about the 5th or 6th week when they finally get to about that 50% range. But then nobody was going to see the movies by then, so they weren't seeing any of that money. That's the problem, is they're getting so squeezed by the studios. And this started back with The Phantom Menace. It was George Lucas who demanded 75% of the opening weekend box office. And then the studios are like, oh, we can do that? And ever since then, the big movies have done that. Marvel, all of them. They demand somewhere between 75 and 90% sometime of the opening weekend box office. And then it goes down dramatically after that. So I don't know who told you that, but yeah, that's the way it works.
That was always the model I was told for years.
Then somebody's lying to you, because go talk to somebody who actually owns a cinema. They'll tell you a completely different story. And they're very regulated on what they can and cannot do, especially now that everything's digital. The studios really pay attention to what you do.
That doesn't seem to make sense to me, considering that the life of movies in cinemas now is less than sometimes 2 weekends or 3 weekends.
And that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying, is by the end of that, they're not getting any of that money.
I'm going to have to look that up and check it.
Yeah, it used to be that way. It used to be more of like a 60-40 kind of break. And then, like
I have an article here from 2017 where it says why Disney can demand 65% of the box office for Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And then they also says here, and they need to play for at least 4 weeks in each cinema's large auditorium. Otherwise, the studios is charging a 5% penalty, bringing their total cut to 70%. I'll put this, and this is just one I found right now. I'll put it in the private chat if Tom wants to bring. So again, this is not a new one. So this is not.
Well, we got people who work in theaters who are just saying it right in the chat now. It's to say, they take such a big chunk of the money that unless you're a theater that's showing something on film anymore, you can't even get away with anything. Like, and this, like, because this one lady I talked to on the theater, she's like, I have to pay for screenings when nobody's there.
Right.
So it's like if nobody shows up, she's still got to show the movie. And because it's all digital now, she can't shut down and cancel it and be like, oh, there wasn't a show and fudge the numbers or anything like that. Because it used to be they could just say, oh, we didn't have a show that day. Or whatever. And they can't do that anymore because everything's digital and they have to stream it while they download the film. And then the studio regulates which theater can have it. So she's bitching about having to move the movie from one theater to the other all the time. And it takes hours to move it on the hard drive. And it's just a pain in the ass and all this stuff. And it's just like, they're really restrictive. And the same thing with the 3D. They forced them all to keep so many 3D screens and they weren't getting anybody in there.
Right.
And now the smaller studios can't do that, but obviously that we're talking just about Disney, Warner, and shit like that. Now Sony, I'm sure, doesn't have that kind of a sway, but
yeah, no, of course it's like it's different because like Disney are the ones that are like the most aggressive on it, and of course you have like the smaller that Lionsgate, they don't have nearly the same pull. So it's going to depend a little bit from studio to studio.
What I see happening though for independents is I see a bunch of four-walling happening. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what that is. I bet you a lot of these independent theaters are open up their theaters again, and that's the way they used to show a lot of smaller films. Is you just go town to town and you'd rent out the theater, you'd pay the theater owner X amount to rent out the screen for the night, you'd sell the tickets, you get to keep the box office as an independent filmmaker. That's how they used to, move around a lot of the B movies back in the day. I see that kind of a thing happening again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how things are going to play out. And that's something that no one really knows for certain. But we have a couple of super chats to go through, and then I want to get a little bit back into this whole discussion with alternate cuts. Because we have someone here that knows a little bit about that from personal experience. But going back to some of the classic super chats, Dash D's says, "Thanks, Tom. Now I'm Dash Classic. No more JJ anything. And all of this is working. Cut bait, start again, and follow the Lucas stylings of the serial stories." And Rob Altis says, "How about cutting a check for Alan Dean Foster? I'm all for that cut."
Shit.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that haven't...
still hasn't gotten any money.
Nope, and I don't think he will, just as Ethan Van Sciver said. And for those wondering what we're talking about, around a couple of months back, we had author Alan Dean Foster on, whose Disney have been... Well, basically, they haven't paid him the royalties that they legally own him for his work. So that's pretty shitty.
Yeah, and I don't know I remember if Ethan said this on a stream or if it was... I'm sure it was on a stream.
No, it was on the stream. It was on the stream.
No, I talked to him about it because he's like, yeah, he said the way this works is when these companies buy these other companies out, even though there's these contracts involved, they think that a lot of times they're null and void. And even though they technically know they're not, they just know that most of the time the people that have to go to try and get the money, it'll bankrupt them to try and get it, and they'll just be able to drag it out in court. You know what I mean? Like to where it's, for some reason, it's worth it more for them to just try and not pay than to just pay somebody, which is stupid because it's probably, and even like Alan said, it's probably only, pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. It's more symbolic than anything. And Natasha just found the link for our interview with him in the chat, so go and check that out.
And then about Alien in there, though. That's a great story.
That's a really, really cool story, yeah. And then moving on, Andrew 46-2 says, "JJ, I have become death, destroyer of franchises." A nice Oppenheimer quote right there. And Hypergiver 2 wonders, what are your guys' thoughts on Netflix making their announcement of a Mobile Suit Gundam movie with Bandai and Sunrise?
Live action, less I heard.
Yeah, Gary, did you hear about that? And how excited are you for that?
What?
Live action Gundam.
Yeah.
What?
I know we need Rob for that.
Yeah, honestly, that's don't feel bad because that was literally my exact response
Macross.
As well. But it's is that like Macross? It's like,
I think so.
Okay, it's like basically it's like some huge Japanese animation giant robot thing.
So
like
it's like a manga thing, right? It's like
yeah. It's like a like the Jaegers in Pacific Rim, something along those lines. Again, people are probably going to go nuts about it, but I know nothing about that myself either.
As I always say, I'm always happy to watch any film that's good. It's all it comes down to. Like we had this discussion before Wonder Woman, when everyone was like, "Oh, Wonder Woman," I was like, "It'll either be good or it'll be bad. If it's good, people will download and watch it, and if it's bad, they won't." It was bad, they didn't, and now people are happily paying $6 for it because it's like, yeah, $6 is worth it for a shit film. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it comes down to whether it's good or bad. I suspect, I didn't see Godzilla versus Kong, but seems like it's probably a pretty fun movie. You know what I mean? Everyone who saw it said it was good fun. You know, that's what it ever comes down to at the end of the day is like, is it good or is it bad? If it's good, people will go and see it. They'll go to the cinemas, they'll stream it, they'll watch it. If it's bad, they'll let you all know it's bad. And no matter what the commercials are, what the toys are, what the posters are like, if it's bad, it'll get out very, very quickly and people won't go and see it. Or at the very least, they'll wait until it comes down to that acceptable price to stream it, to go, well, even if it's bad, I'll watch it. And they'll watch it and go, yeah, that was shit, but it was $6, so I don't care.
Moving on from there, Coraon Witch in Residence says, unless the JJ cut gets rid of the nonsense of episode 8 and Kyle and Rey, then there is no point. And Roger H says, I would prefer an extended Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Midnight Sun says, hello everyone, what do you think of adapting RoboCop versus Terminator to reboot those franchises? Now, as for me, I will say right away off the bat, I am very familiar with the first time that happened, which was in comic book form, before any video games or anything like that. It was a Dark Horse comic by Frank Miller, and it's freaking fantastic. It's better. That comic is better than any Terminator movie since Part 3 onwards, and it's better than any RoboCop movie since Part 2 onwards. So I would be all for that. That would be if they just adapted that one comic by Frank Miller, and they did that relatively literally, or literally, it would make for an incredible movie.
The only way that's going to happen, though, is if Warner Brothers buys MGM.
It's never going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, in that hypothetical event.
Isn't that where Terminator's at now? Paramount?
No, it's James Cameron has.
Yeah, but Terminator. He gave the rights to that one. Skydance.
Yeah, he licensed it right back.
Which I think they have a deal with Paramount for the next, at least for the next couple of years until.
Yeah, that they do, but Paramount only have it by way of Skydance, and they only have it by way of James Cameron.
Right, but no, MGM's.
It's not going to happen, but we're all missing out because of it. Because that would have been something. Because that's a great story. Gary,
MGM
would you have been interested in RoboCop versus Terminator movie, or does it just sound too ridiculous?
It's just I think so much shit's been rammed down on Terminator now that I just don't care anymore. If I never see a T-800 endoskeleton ever again in my entire life, that's fine by me. I'm so tired. Yeah, Terminator is dead. You know, it's like so tired. I'm so tired for the last 3 movies of being told, no, this one's going to be amazing. Jim Cameron says it's fantastic. Oh, it was shit. And Jim Cameron said, yeah, he didn't really mean it. No, this one's going to be amazing. Jim Cameron says it's going to be fantastic. No, it's shit. And now Jim Cameron says, yeah, well, I knew it was going to be shit. It's like, you know, I feel like so many times I got led down the garden path, you know, and was like lapping it up like a little doggy, you know, like, yes, I'll go and watch, and then go, yeah. You know, and I love RoboCop, the original. I mean, I do. Horrible reboot, you know, shit version. But I love the original. It's Script Doctor that says it does. It needs to be terminated.
I agree.
It just needs to be buried, and you know, it's like it. We'll remember with fond memories the original and the sequel. You know, and I even think the third film was actually had some pretty amazing action sequences.
Yeah, I like it.
It had a nice explosion, like when that battery exploded. It was like a little mushroom cloud. That was nice. That was like my favorite.
I like the ending of the third film.
That car chase they have, and the female.
Oh, that was cool too. Now that you mentioned,
I like the ending of the third film because it feels very old school sci-fi.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the thing is, retroactively, that third film's got better because the other ones were so bloody awful afterwards. You know, but we had the McG, you know, version, and I mean, it's all been horrible. It's just tarnished it worse and worse and worse. And I'm afraid as well, I do tend to usually feel that with like when you say Terminator versus RoboCop, it's like can someone not come up with something better or new? You know, punch-up movies are always a bit like, really, there's going to be, again, like we discussed this the last time I was on, and you yelled at me for spoilers. And no one had told me about this. I didn't know, but I knew, just as a scriptwriter, you can't have King Kong versus Godzilla and have them fight each other and kill each other. You can't. There has to be a nemesis.
Right. Wow.
So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, I knew there was going to be Mechagodzilla in it. It was fucking obvious. It's like they're going to fight nasty, but no one's going to want to see Godzilla die or King Kong die because they're going to have to team up. And it's like that with RoboCop versus Terminator, unless Frank Miller does something brilliant with it, which he may have done. I've never read that comic book, but hey, look,
he did. He really did.
If the Miller comic is really that great, and look, I think Frank Miller's a bit hit or miss. It tends to sometimes be great on paper, but tends to be a bit hollow.
This was written in the period when he was great, shortly after he wrote the Dark Knight comics.
Well, have you ever
written in that then? This was good 80s Frank Miller.
Was this right off of when he wrote? See, because have you ever read his comics of what he had originally written for RoboCop 2 and 3?
This was around that time.
Okay, that's what I figured. And I'm not against it, but here's my thing. I'm with the whole idea the Terminator franchise just needs to go away. But we know RoboCop is never getting off the fucking ground. It's just not going to happen. And they lost any chance now of getting Peter Weller back. When Blomkamp walked out the door, that was it. That movie was never going to happen. And when it does happen, it's just going to be some bad movie. What they should do is get like Netflix to do like some animated RoboCop series that leads up to like Terminator versus RoboCop and do a bunch of the Frank Miller.
I also think inherently the thing about RoboCop that we all like is we like the design of the robot, the original Peter Weller design.
Right, and Ed 209 and all that shit, yeah.
Ed 209 and all that. But I think technology's moved on forwards, and we all know now that robots wouldn't look like big chrome things with human faces, that they'd be probably, more skin covered kind of things, so it does tend to feel a bit like a retro design. So unless you were gonna, I just think it's a bit passe, I think
that's what Blomkamp was going to use with the whole point of making it a sequel this many years after the original, was that RoboCop was kind of a throwback.
Right. That's the only way. That feels like it might work if you were going to do it, But again, if you told me a certain director was going to, if you say Stephen Norrington's doing RoboCop Terminator, I'll be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, I'm curious to see how that's going to come out, because you need someone who basically can take it and make it cool. You might hear it and go, oh, that sounds bloody awful and just sounds tired and boring. But you get the right person on board and who's got a really kind of energetic, cool, knows what's hip and kind of cool for now. And maybe they make it really, really cool. And out the box it comes and it's fantastic. You just never know. Like I say, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. But to me, it just feels like a bit of a bloated, overweighted headline. Like as a scriptwriter, someone says, hey, do you want to write Terminator versus RoboCop, and you're like, oh fucking hell, really? Can't I write my own original new little thing rather than trying to shoehorn these two characters into some kind of espionage between OCP and and fucking Cyberdyne system?
Well, if I remember right, the whole idea is that RoboCop's programming is what set up Skynet to begin with.
Like, I just don't need to hear about Skynet anymore and all that.
That's a problem, that even though that particular story was great, but RoboCop and especially the Terminator has been ran into the ground so much that I think we just better stick with the excellent comic. Also, that game is on the Sega Mega Drive, and it's freaking fantastic.
It's also on Super Nintendo as well.
Yeah, but the
Sega Mega Drive is better.
That's one of the cases. There are a couple where the Sega Mega Drive game was better. This is one of them.
Well, and that's where I say an animated version would probably be best, because then you could like kick it off. You could even call it like Frank Miller's RoboCop and kick it off with like his version of 2 and 3 and some of the other stories that he did, and then just like I said, work it into Terminator versus Robot, and you might even get Peter to come and do the voice at least, and then it can just be a thing where it's set in that time period or that world where, because like you said, Gary, because I'm to the point where unless you're going to get Peter Weller back and do what Blomkamp was probably going to do, I have zero fucking interest in seeing any RoboCop going forward. I don't want to see anybody else play him. I don't want to see a remake. We already saw that, and it was probably sadly one of the best of the remakes we've gotten out of that era, and it still isn't saying much. So yeah. And that's just because they tried to do a few things a little different, but it still just didn't work for me.
Yeah. And before we move on from there, Mega Codigan says, how is RoboCop anything like, I guess you means Dredd?
Yeah.
Dredd is human. Actually, I'm going to do a video on this, but RoboCop actually started off as a Judge Dredd script. And the irony is that in making him RoboCop, they humanized him.
Well, wasn't it about the construction of
the original script?
Wasn't it about like Delta City was actually Mega City 1?
I don't recall those details. I think that might be something that they reused later. But like the guy who invented RoboCop, he was working on a Judge Dredd movie before, and he basically took all of the good concepts with it. Yeah, that's
what I was going to say. Ed Neumeyer.
Yeah, Neumeyer. Yeah, he was working on a Judge Dredd movie. And then that didn't really happen. So he took all of his like the good stuff with him, and he went and set up shop with RoboCop. And basically, so yeah, it very much so is a Judge Dredd ripoff.
But didn't they also when they filmed RoboCop, when they did the edit, it was only like about 65 minutes long, and they got no more footage. So that's why they made all the commercials and put all that stuff in and all the news footage.
I don't know if that.
That actually could be, but again, that is also like very, very true to Judge Dredd. So if that was scripted or they added in, I honestly don't know, but it does sound very plausible because there wasn't much left on the cutting room floor there. And also, like all of RoboCop's catchphrases, they're Dredd catchphrases, every last one of them.
Your move, group.
Remember that time RoboCop shot the dude in the dick?
Remember that time that 209 shoots the shit out of that guy, but none of the windows behind him get shot? That was amazing.
And I love that when they're like, call a fucking paramedic. Well, it's because he's got good aim, Gary.
In front of a glass window, and not one window gets shot.
That's because he's got good aim.
I hadn't thought about that. My God, you just ruined the movie.
No. He's just got good aim. That's all.
Why everyone cocks his long arm so long at the end when he falls? Why is the arms?
That was also pretty ridiculous. Yeah, Gary, you should be able to explain this. How the hell were his arms that freaking long? How could that happen? How could anyone let that pass?
Phil Tippett, what were you doing? Jesus Christ.
I think he was trying to do something with like some kind of like my guess is the original puppet was designed to like do like some kind of perspective shot. Yeah. And then like Verhoeven's like, no, I want him on his back. And he's like, but I have the doll set to where it looks like he's falling. And no, I want him doing it. That's my guess.
That's the only reason that could explain that.
I think the biggest shame about that movie, particularly, is that you wouldn't see anybody write that kind of dark comedy now. Nobody writes that. I mean, just that classic, the guy gets blown to bits, and
somebody call a paramedic.
And the one guy's like, "I'm very disappointed, Bob." Disappointed. What about what happened to Harrison? That's life in the big city. It's like, I mean, it's got such great, ridiculous humor. Like the two hookers when they're leaving, call me,
RoboCop is one of my all-time favorite movies.
It's one of those movies where, you've got a great robot, a great lead character, and what Verhoeven had done was he put legitimately great actors into what was really a B movie. Like you got these guys turning in amazing performances, even though they were doing this kind of schlocky movie, and it just worked, didn't it? I mean, the music, everything all kind of came together.
God, yeah. Well, and to think it almost didn't happen because Verhoeven threw it in the fucking garbage, and his wife just happened to read it. And he's like,
a title like that would just make you go, "What the
fuck?" Yeah,
Corman movie, RoboCop,
Oh God, what is that? Some Corman movie? Yeah,
sounds like a Corman movie. But but it became an absolute stonking classic. Like I say,
absolutely.
And Peter Weller, I'm sure, I'm sure even he was like first day. You can imagine him going, "What the fuck am I doing in this thing?" But
Well, he made him like he had to relearn. Like he had a dance instructor to help him learn how to move and shit and that.
Yeah, there was like a mime
or whatever. Yeah.
Well, he couldn't move in it. He couldn't move in the suit anyway, so they had to relearn how to walk. Basically, it was a very inhibitive suit. And the first day when they actually put it on him, It was the first day that ever actually got to put it on him. So they literally had to sand each piece to fit him. So it took 12 hours to get 12 hours to get it in him in the first day, because they were just sanding and cutting and trying a leg piece. I mean, that stuff normally you would do weeks and weeks and weeks in advance, but they
rushed it, didn't they? Anyway, and then because he wasn't even originally cast. I'm trying to remember who was originally cast.
I think it was him. He was the first one. Yeah. No, they needed a skinny guy, and he was a skinny guy who had success with that thing with the dude in the multiple dimensions.
Oh, the Cronenberg film. Yeah, are you talking about Buckaroo Banzai?
I'm talking about Buckaroo Banzai. That was the reason. It was Buckaroo Banzai that got him hired for that.
But makeup effects were also, I mean, at that time, Bottin, was known for taking, needing more time than he, working to the last minute, basically. And the crew were kind of like, churning pieces out. It was all fiberglass, and the materials then were a lot more, not as refined as they are now. We would never make a suit like that out of fiberglass. So I just think it was a situation where literally, the guys I know who worked on it, they said literally they had a big box of pieces that were all made that they've been working. They're still reeking of fiberglass. And the day that they first shot with him was literally the first time they ever put it on him, and kind of they had to assemble it on his body that day. And that does happen. I mean, I did the same thing on Hellraiser 3. There's a scene with a skinned girl. And literally, the day I arrived, I got literally a big box of prosthetic appliances of a skin person. They handed me a girl in a thong, which was very cool. And then I got to glue pieces. I had to glue her into this skinned body makeup, and it took about 5 hours because I was building the skinned suit on her, rather than it had been made in advance, and we knew how it was going to fit her. So it does happen sometimes, but. But and then of course they were shooting in Dallas in the summer, and it was boiling hot, and Verhoeven was sweating. Weller was sweating his nuts off. The joke of course is that when they did the third film, they did cast Burke because he was the same size as Weller. That's the reason he got the job.
Yeah. On that note, I just want to bring this up. Valiant Renegade says, since it was relevant, Verhoeven was not happy with the first take of Kenny's death. Sent a grip down to buy a gallon Ziploc bags at the 7-Eleven and filled them with stage blood. Now, Gary, you said that. Well, he must have had the stage blood, I guess. But Gary, you said that you knew people that worked on that movie. Do you have any cool stories that you heard from your friends from the set of RoboCop?
No. I just heard that again. I always asked when I did ask them. I just asked them about that because it was notorious. Because the story was it took Mr. Cameron. The story was, of course, that it became legend that it took 12 hours to get him in the suit. And I was like, every day? Why would it take every day? I was like, no, only the first day. So I'd asked about that, and they said, yeah, we literally were in Dallas, and it was just like all these pieces were there, and you put the first one on Peter's leg, and it didn't fit. It was grinding against his leg, so it was like take a Dremel and grind, put it back on him. No, needs a bit more off. Grind, put it back on him. And that was the biggest. And it was like, the film crew were going, we need him now. And they were just saying, he's not ready. And I know Verhoeven was going out of his mind. And it was just basically a huge shitstorm for the first couple of days.
Right. I know when he's in the car, he can't wear the pants.
No, he couldn't sit down. Of course, you know what I mean? And again, but it's one of those suits that I think, they talk about a dance instructor and all that, but I just really, truly believe that the suit led him to walking in a certain way anyway. I mean, what he did brilliantly was that head turn, neck turn, body movement, you know what I mean, where his head would turn and his body would follow.
Well, what Peter probably needed was somebody there to say, yeah, that looks good, or no, that doesn't look good, kind of thing, more than anything, I bet.
The only story I do know about that was I worked with a stunt coordinator, and she was the girl who the rape victim. When they're going to basically there's more.
Oh yeah, where RoboCop shot the guy in the dick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shoots him through the dress.
Yeah, what was so she was more than just an actress. You said you worked with her. What was what capacity did you work with her?
I can't remember her name now, but she was stunt coordinator on My Bloody Valentine 3. And And she said, we were talking about something. She's like, oh, I was in RoboCop. I was the blonde girl. And I was like, oh, there's more hair down there. And she was like, yeah, I really hated that line. I thought it was really, really offensive. And she said, I didn't know they were going to say that to me. That wasn't in the script, She said that was there. She said, I thought it was really offensive. And I was like, well, it's kind of supposed to be like a rapey scene. So, yeah. But,
welcome to modern Hollywood.
Yeah, but I mean, but
it ended up in the movie, though. That wouldn't have happened today.
Oh, fuck. RoboCop wouldn't happen today. I mean, the reason that remake sucks is because they don't get the original film. I mean, the only reason it's probably one of the better ones is because just as on its surface, the story works, but it just doesn't have the sense of humor. It doesn't have the soul. It doesn't have the same tone. It just kind of falls flat.
Again, I just think now it's like, it'd be interesting to see what someone like Script Doctor thinks, you know what I mean? But people just don't seem to write that kind of anymore, that kind of like, oblique sense. Like I wouldn't write dialogue like that. It's just those kind of like, I mean, almost on the page when you read it, it's like it's a bit ridiculous, Well,
it's a comic book.
It is. I'm trying to think of some of the lines that I was again like the Kenny.
Your move, creep.
Well, not that so much because I mean that's kind of like Dead or Alive. You're coming with me. Those are all kind of good. I mean, again, very Dread-like line. But again, I'm just trying to think about that kind of like those the kind of
Can you fly, Bobby?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Can you fly, Bobby? No, Clarence. Clarence Bodyguard. No. Oh, that was a funny story about RoboCop. So this is true. It's not really, but again, we would do lines. Everyone would always do lines from movies in workshops. In when we would do makeup effects, and people would go, no. No. They would do that, no. And I was in Germany. I think we were in Rome doing a film, and me and Mike Regan, like. He was in his room, I was in my room, and I think RoboCop was on TV in Italian, and it had been dubbed. And we both came out of our room, and I said, "Did you see RoboCop?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he went, "Yeah." What was clack 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 clack? Done instead of going no. You go clack 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 clack, and he's like, "That's so weird." I think my favorite line in RoboCop was always been, let the mayor go. And he's like, I want a car and a bigger office and a car that does really shitty gas mileage. He's like, how about the new SUX 2000? He's like, yeah. And he goes, okay.
Let the mayor go. We'll throw in a blow punt.
Don't fuck with me. I mean, this is crazy dialogue, right? It's ridiculously hilarious.
Bitches leave.
Yeah, it's funny stuff. It's got funny dialogue in it, but I just don't read dialogue like that anymore. People don't write comedy like that.
Who cares if it works?
I like it. Yeah.
We had parts. We had military contracts. Yeah.
Dick.
Dick Jones. Dick Jones owns the police. He runs OCP.
You can't kill me. Wrong.
Now that's an incredibly quotable movie. I think is the.
Like I said, there are certain movies in makeup effects workshops that have been quoted. Like if you go and work in a makeup effects shop, I'd buy that for $1. You will hear lines from RoboCop, The Thing. People used to do the Tears in the Rain speech all the time. Legend for some reason. In England, people used to love doing lines from Legend. So.
Oh, RoboCop was way ahead of its time. Ahead of its time.
Big time. Very.
Just look how Michigan has fallen apart since then. They're a step away from getting OCP.
Animation in that. I love Ed 209. I love Ed 209's toe when he's dying,
Yeah, that's brilliant. Just that little detail.
That's all Phil Tippett, man.
Well, that's Phil Tippett doing his Ray Harryhausen, and the Ray Harryhausen always uses the last tail shudder of of a dying creature.
Absolutely.
And you just feel it in that with that beautiful
100%. Oh, and speaking of that, what pisses me off, and I keep running into them. I don't know why they're so popular, but these idiots, all they do is they take these classic stop motion and go motion scenes,
move them out,
and they'll do the 60 frames per second movement shit. It's like, what are you doing? Oh, I hate that.
That was in, again. I'm not, so you guys are the Mandalorian specialists, but I was watching behind the scenes about the Greebles. Is that what they're called? The creature that he rides around on.
That could be. I'm not sure.
The creature that Mandalorian rides around on that looks a bit like a
I know the way you're talking about, but I can't remember what they're called.
So they were originally in the Caravan of Courage, apparently, but John Favreau liked them. But apparently,
which is an HD now for some reason, I guess, on Disney Plus. I'm told.
But when he had them animated, he actually said he wanted a bit of the stop motion-y jerk in them, so they actually animated them slightly a little bit like stop motion-y. Even though they still put a skin over them, they do have a little bit of kind of stop motion jitter to them. So because Favreau liked that original look of the stop motion look. So
that's very interesting.
Well, I think that's part of the problem with CGI is sometimes it's too smooth and overly animated. I mean, that's why Phil Tippett did that and why Ray Harryhausen kind of started it. And that was the whole thing is that motion blur that wasn't there. It was too smooth to begin with. They put that there on purpose, and that's what I keep trying to tell people when they do these updates and smoothing overs of classic things. Cause somebody did it to Ed 209. Someone did it to Clash of the Titans. I saw.
No, that was the same person.
I'm just like, quit doing this. It just drives me fucking nuts. It's like you're taking away what the artist put in there on purpose. It just bothers me.
Well, I think there are bigger things to be bothered about, but yeah,
I get that. Yes,
but anyway, then this more
until you've worked in a workshop, a makeup effects workshop, and at 2:00 in the morning had someone walk through the workshop going, doing the melting guy from You're like, I know what that is.
Are you sure he's just having a seizure?
But the more obscure it could be, the better it used to be. So
yeah. Also, welcome Sean McDeed NJ as a new member. So yeah, welcome. We have a couple of more super chats to run through, but Gary, thanks for the story time. I love hearing your stories because the thing with Gary,
those aren't good stories because they're not from movies I worked on. It's better when I have stories about films that I did. We'll have to do a proper story time when I can tell you some stories about.
I really want to hear that. I would love to have a full Gary J. Tunnicliffe story time video where we just go through your stories. But actually, you gave us
I'll tell you one of my favorite stories ever.
Yeah, go for it.
So Dracula 2000. This is a true story. Dracula 2000 with Gerard Butler. Gerard's kind of like first big movie, really kind of launching him. So we're shooting in New Orleans, and we're shooting downtown, like in the French Quarter. Anyway, end of shoot day happens, and we all go to a bar, and we're playing billiards. And there's me and Gerard and a few people, and we're all kind of hanging out, playing billiards and having a drink and stuff, and generally chilling out at the end of the working day. And then the bar guy says, "I'm sorry, but I have to close the bar. It's the it's the end of the shift kind of thing. I have to close up in 5 minutes." And everyone's like, "Oh no, really? It'd be really great if we could kind of go and hang out somewhere else." And someone said, "Look, there's got to be another bar nearby we can go to." And someone said, "Oh, there's a bar across the street." And Jerry goes, "No way are we going to that place." He said, "I walked by that place today. There's blood all over the floor outside of it." And I went, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, there's blood all outside the bar." He said, "There must have been a fight or something." He said, "We're not going there." And I was like, "Oh, bullshit." I said, "You are bullshitting me." He says, "I am telling you there's blood all over the floor outside there." I went, "Show me." So they closed the bar, and there's like 6 of us, and we all leak, and we all go traveling. We walk around these streets, and we get to this place, and Jerry goes, "This is the place." He goes, Look in the gutter." And I look in the gutter, and sure enough, there's there's blood all over the floor. And I went, he said, "Look, there's blood there." And I went, "Oh my God, you're right. That is blood." And I put my fingers in it and I went, "Oh my God." I said, "It is blood, isn't it? It is blood." And I went, "Look, it's blood." And I was like, "Oh my God." I went, "Oh my God. Yeah, that's blood." And Jerry Butler goes, What are you doing?" And I went, "It's my blood, Jerry. It's my fake blood. This is the building we shot outside earlier on, you idiot. And I emptied my blood bucket here." He was like, "Oh my God." He said, "I was like, what the bloody hell are you doing when you put the blood in your mouth and started licking it?" And all 5 of them were just looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "It's my fake blood, you idiot." He was like, oh yeah, this is the building we were filming in." I was like, "Yeah, you moron." So, Dracula 2000.
Yeah, oh, that's brilliant stuff. Which building is that in the movie? For those that feel like checking that out, do you recall?
Somewhere in the French Quarter. We were there. We got to Louisiana. We were only shooting there for a week and a half, but it turned out I'd never been to New Orleans before, but apparently it was Decadence Weekend. Now, I don't know if any of you know what Decadence Weekend is in New Orleans, but it's like one of the biggest weekends for the gay community to kind of get there and go a bit crazy. I mean, literally, we saw all kinds of stuff going on in alleyways and God knows what. Anyway, the end of the shooting night happened, and one day, and we finished at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and the hotel we were staying in, there was on the top floor, they got a swimming pool, and and we went up there, and the pool was empty and everything, and we were sitting around the pool having some drinks, and one of the crew members got in the swimming pool and started swimming around. And I remember Jerry Butler saying to the guy, he said, I wouldn't swim in that pool if I was you. And Jerry said, and this guy said, why? What's wrong? And Jerry said, well, I came up here about 5 hours ago. He said, and there was that pool was full of men. He said, and there was a lot of funny stuff going on inside there. He said, I couldn't see a lot of hands, he said, but the whole pool was just full of men having a very good time. He said, I literally walked in and walked out. He said, but I wouldn't swim around in that water if I was you. This guy's face was like, what?
Yeah, that was very nice of him to share that story with those that were already in the pools.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. I mean, put it like this: I got in the elevator one night on the one evening, and there was a vibrator on the floor of the and this was this is a really nice hotel in New Orleans. There was a vibrator there on the floor. Like, okay, strange hotel. Oh, and then I got a phone call. My girlfriend came to visit me at the time. She was helping me shoot, and it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I get a phone call on my cell phone, and it's Jerry Ryan. Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9.
Yeah, exactly, like 7 and 9 from Star. So she called you. That should wake everyone up. Jerry Ryan called Gary.
2 o'clock in the morning. She's like, Gary, it's Jerry. I'm like, hey, Jerry, you okay? She's like, no, help. And I went, what? She's like, you have to come to this bar. It's like 3 blocks down the street. But I've been here drinking with some of the crew, and several of them are a bit drunk, and they're getting a bit flirty and a bit friendly, and I need to get the fuck out of here, but I can't get out of here. Help. So I have to say to my girlfriend, I'm like, I have to go, I have to leave, and I have to go and see. And she's like, why is Jerry Ryan calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, well, I've just got to go. Why? What have you been doing? I'm like, nothing. She's a friend. So I literally had to walk, get dressed, walk down a couple of streets in the early hours of the morning in New Orleans, walk into this bar and just walk in and go, hey, baby, how are you? Walk over, put my arms around her. She's like, hey, sweetie, kisses me on the cheek. I'm like, you ready to go? She's like, yeah, great. Well, bye, guys. Great drink, having time with you all. And all these guys are like, what the fuck, And I'm like, hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for taking care of her. Thanks for not being creepy dudes. You know what I mean? Bye. And then kind of walked her back to the hotel, and she got into the foyer, and she's like, oh, thank God. Help! Thank you, saved me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a classic right there. Saving 709
Jerry Ryan
from the bar.
Saving Jerry Ryan.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
She trusted me. People are like, why would Jerry trust you? It's because Jerry had been to my workshop the month before, and if you've seen Dracula 2000, you know that as a vampire, she gets killed by having a cross stabbed here in her chest. So I had to cast Jerry's chest area in order to make a plate that would go in there that would have a thing sticking out of it. I had to make this special thing to fit under cleavage. So I had to cast her breasts. So she came to the studio like 2 months before we filmed, did the job, very professional as we do. And then, of course, we start shooting the film in Toronto and then in Louisiana. And then she comes to visit Louisiana. And the first AD, Tony Steinberg, he walked to Jerry on set, and he's introducing it to people. And he walks up to me and he's like, Gary, I'd like you to meet Jerry Ryan. She's going to be playing the vampire, that gets killed with the thing. And Jerry puts her arm around me and she goes, oh, Tony, you don't have to introduce Gary to me. Gary knows me a lot better than most men do, don't you, Gary? And I went, I think I do. She's like, yes, you do. And that's why she trusted me, I think. And also she got on very well with my girlfriend. So that's why she yeah, yes, it was yes, Dr. Dave, it's a terrible job, but someone has to do it. So,
yeah, indeed. I think that there are quite a few people that that would have loved to intern for you that one day. So, yeah.
But all the girls on that, Jennifer Esposito and Vitamin C, Colleen Atwood, they were all the vampire sirens were all beautiful and amazing, and Jerry was lovely. She was awesome. And then she started telling me Star Trek stories, because I think I probably got her in trouble with the next season of Star Trek, because she said that they kept having to take the piece off her face with alcohol because they would reuse it. And I said, you tell them to take it off with mirror state. It's burning your skin. I said, tell them to make you a new piece every day. Stop being cheap bastards. So, But yeah, she was lovely. Jerry was amazing and lovely.
Yeah.
But loved her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. On that note, like we're getting like offers for volunteer work right now. So yeah.
Yes, it's amazing how many people want to do that when you're doing naked cast. Not when you have to do a dude, of course. Then of course I did Piranha 3D, and I had to do a piranha biting a guy's penis off. So I had to do a cast of that, and I had to shove a piranha up some guy's butt once as well. So I had to make a special rig that would fit between his butt cheeks, and he wasn't very clean that day. So there's good and there's bad. Trust me. Some days it isn't all Jerry Ryan boobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, you got to take it, take the good with the bad. Absolutely. But that's incredibly cool. Were there any other really cool stories from the set of Dracula 2000? Because Jerry was in that one.
So many. The classic one, another classic one was we were shooting most of the movie in Toronto. And what was really cool was Denise Cronenberg was doing costumes, and most of David Cronenberg's crew were on our film. But we were going to fly down to New Orleans, and they said, we've hired a plane for you, and we were like, what? And they said, we hired a private plane, and we were like, wow, how cool is this? Like, we're going to be flown down in like a private jet down to New Orleans. It's like, yeah, this is going to be cool. Like, I thought the budget was good, but I didn't know it was that good. So we're all excited about this. We're all really getting it. And it's only like heads of the crew. There's only so many people who are going to New Orleans, like about 15, 16 people, including the cast. So we all roll up to this place to get on our plane. And it was like, oh no, it was like John Denver Air. I mean, it was literally like, it was like this rusty old bucket of a plane, and we sat in the back where they'd got like a cargo net with all of our luggage inside it, and we're all in these army chairs, and we're all like, this isn't what we thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to be like some super duper private jet, and I'm sitting next to Johnny Lee Miller, and he's like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, I know. And then the air hostess service was, they literally walked up with a tray of sandwiches and handed the first person on the first row of seats of sandwiches and said, take what you want, and then hand them back to the person behind you. And that was what we did for food service. But then, about an hour away from New Orleans, we hit a storm, a huge tropical storm. So it's like the plane's doing all this, and we're all over the place. And we had to land in Mobile, Alabama, at like 1:00 in the morning. And we had to sit in this little tiny Mobile, Alabama airport room for like 6 hours while they tried to fix the plane and get it ready to fly again. So I'm sitting there like playing with me and Johnny Lee Miller are playing, like throwing coins at the wall and just all bored out of our brains. And then we managed to talk someone into making us some food. So it was like, oh, what a nightmare. We all thought it was going to be this super luxurious, beautiful Learjet flying us down to New Orleans, and it turned out to be this absolute horrendous, like we're all going to die. Is it going to be a Lynyrd Skynyrd kind of moment, like a horrible plane?
Yeah, like small craft aren't necessarily that comfy, and I know there's some people that think that helicopters are comfortable to travel in. And they're anything but. It's like the worst thing to travel in there is almost.
But what was fun about that film was just Jerry was so excited to be on the film, Jerry Butler, and he was such he wasn't very well known, and well, he wasn't well known at all. But I've never worked with anyone who had such confidence that he was going to be a star. He would literally run up to girls. Jerry likes girls, and he would literally run up to girls and go, "Hi, my name is Jerry. I'm going to be a star." Gary, tell it. It's true, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, it probably is. And these girls would be like, "What?" And he go, "True. I'm going to be a big movie star." And they'd be like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah. And he was just hilarious. He was such a funny guy, and he likes. He used to like he liked pastries and cakes and stuff like that. Jerry did, but they were trying to keep him off it, and they'd given him a trainer, and the trainer was like, "Don't eat any pastries, don't eat cookies, don't eat muffins, because you need to stay slim for the love sequences. Don't get fat." Anyway, he turns up in my trailer one day, and he's chatting away, and he's got the door open, and he's talking to me, and I'm in the doorway. And he sees his trainer walking towards us. He's like, "Oh, God, it's my trainer. So I've got to go and work out." And I was like, "Oh." And we keep talking. And I got a big muffin. And I just pushed it over to him. Just stuck my hand out with this muffin. And he took it off me. He just wasn't thinking. He just took this muffin off me. And he's like, and he's just about to eat it. And he sees his trainer. And he's like, "I don't want this." "What are you doing?" And the trainer was like, "What are you doing, Jerry?" And he's like, "It's not mine. I don't like muffins,
Yeah, well, that was. I'm sure that was like a nice start for the 300 workout that he had to endure later on. And
yeah,
I hope that the ladies that he will run up to and say, "I want to be a star," that they remembered him for when he was all over the place for 300.
Yes, he had a few rendezvous with various ladies. I remember when I worked with Isabella Scorotco. Do you know Isabella Scorotco?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
I worked with Isabella on Exorcist: The Beginning, and I'd never met her before in my life. And the first time I met Isabella, I went, they go, "This is Gary Tunnicliffe. He's going to be your makeup artist." And I went, "Oh, Isabella, I love you. You're so beautiful. Marry me, Isabella. You're so beautiful." And she went, "Oh, you know Jerry Butler?" She went, "Oh, yeah, you know Jerry Butler." "Yes, that's exactly what I heard for 3 months on Rain of Fire."
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and Joel Rice says, this Jerry is Gerard Butler. That's exactly who it is.
And it was,
so,
was the reason, I like to think I was the reason he's called Gerard Butler. When he got the credits for Dracula 2000, he called me up and he said, they're doing the credits. He said, "Do you think I should be called Jerry Butler or Gerard Butler?" And I said, "Oh, Gerard, absolutely." And he's like, "Really?" He said, "Because I've always been Jerry. Everyone calls me Jerry. I'm Jerry. I said, "Dude, there are loads of Jerrys." I said, "And Jerry's just like it's kind of like a Tom and Jerry. It's like it's a bit of a it's a kind of a normal name." I said, "There are no Gerards anywhere in the world." I said, "There's no Gerard." I said, "So you'll be the only Gerard." I said, "People will say Gerard." I said, "And also it's a word that people don't know how to say because it's actually Jared is actually the way you say it in Scotland. You say Jared. I said, they'll be like, is it Gerard or Jared?" I said, "And that's what you want." I said, "It's like Ralph Fiennes. Nobody remembers Ralph Fiennes, but they remember Rafe Fiennes." I said, "So you have to be Gerard." I said, "And then you can always be Jerry to your friends and everyone else." But I said, "But Gerard will be a name that stands out as one and only because there aren't any other Gerards around." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So
yeah, very cool. So everyone wondering, Gary J. Tunnicliffe is the man to praise or to blame for the name Gerard Butler.
It's all your fault.
Well, I think his mum was probably responsible for his name, but I do like to think I'm sure if he was pondering it, maybe I tilted him over the fence towards the fact that Gerard had a certain, like I say, it was a bit more nuanced. Yeah. Jerry sounds like a guy who might wallpaper your living room, but Gerard sounds like an actor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darius from Tasman.
Yes, indeed. So that's very good advice there. Also, someone wondered what happened to the mold.
Of what?
Well, guess what? The mold of 7 of 9, of course. Yeah.
Of 2 of 2. Yes. Well.
Do you
Great
have
golfing, I pray to it every day. You know, but, yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those questions. Again, when people know about that, they, you know, like they're like, "Can I help?" You know, it's like people always want to do this, but those situations usually are actually very, very unsensual situations when you do them, actually, because you have to be incredibly professional. You know, I mean, you know, I used to say I'd always wanted to make a video of like how not to behave when you're doing that kind of thing. You know, because like it's like, okay, we're going to do a live cast now, so I need you to take your top off. And usually, what I would do is I would actually give the alginate or the silicone we would use to cast someone's chest or body parts. He's very gooey and like Jello kind of thing. So rather than going, I'm going to cast your chest now and going, you know, there you go, how's that? You know what I mean? You know, you usually just give it to them and say, well, if you do a coat and kind of like put it on, and then I'll wait for it to set up a little bit, and then I'll work on it. And I always said that would be the, you know, someone doesn't take their shirt off and you don't go, wow, look at those. Like that would be the worst thing in the world to say, right? You know, like, you know.
So that's why I got fired.
Sorry?
I was making a joke. I said, "Oh, so that's why I got fired."
Yes, exactly. Well, you know, I mean, it's a weird situation. I mean, like I remember I did a live cast of Demi Moore, and Demi was just really lovely. She just spent 2 hours in my studio, and I did her hands and her face, and she was just being really, really, really cool. She was just really fantastic and professional and lovely. She drove herself, and we just chatted, and we ended up talking about A Few Good Men, and she was doing Jack Nicholson's lines and I was doing her lines, and we were kind of like doing the dialogue from the movie in the studio, and we had this big old giggle about it. Kept very professional, and then when she left, it was literally like she walked out the room and we all went, "Oh, that was amazing! Like she was great! Like Demi Moore was so cool!" You know, like felt like we all kind of collapsed and said, "Wow," you know, a bit giddy, like that moment in Notting Hill when Julia Roberts leaves the room, you know, and everyone goes, "Ah!" And it was kind of like that because Demi was just really, really sweet. And then the strangest thing happened. I'd literally done this live cast and spent the afternoon with Demi. And then 2 days later, I went into a meeting at Gold Circle Films and got into an elevator, and there was Ashton Kutcher in the elevator with me. And I said, I was just with your wife 2 days ago. And he went, really? He said, oh, you're not the English guy who did the cast on her head, are you? And I went, yeah, that's right, I am. I said, she was fantastic. She was amazing. He said, no, she said she had a really good time. Thanks for looking after her. And I was like, you're welcome. And then even weirder, about 5 years later, Jerry Butler was in Michigan doing Machine Gun Preacher, and I was there doing Scream 5. And Jerry said, do you want to go to a bar? Do you want to meet up at a club somewhere? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I'll meet you at this club. He said, this is the address. It's in downtown Michigan. It's in, downtown Michigan. Go to this club. Tell them you're with me. Go in and blah, blah, blah. So I get to this club and there's a big queue of people. And I said, I'm supposed to. And they go, you with Gerald Butler? And I'm like, yes. And they go around the back. There's a private elevator. He's going to meet you there when he arrives with his guests. And I'm like, okay. So I'm standing there and I'm waiting. And sure enough, a car pulls up and Jerry jumps out with a bunch of people, like 2 or 3 guys and 3 girls. And we all get out and get in the elevator. And I'm standing there looking at Jerry, and Jerry's like, hey, how you doing? And I look at the girl standing in front of me, and it's Demi Moore. And Demi looks at me, and she went, I know you. And I went, I know you. She went, I was the best one you ever did. And she was like, that's right, you were. And Jerry was like, you two know each other? And I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah. So weird. Sometimes life's so freaking random in the film industry, you know.
Yeah, it's very cool, and like any industry, it's a pretty small place, isn't it? Like everyone knows everyone a little bit, which again is why it's important to be so professional, because word kind of spreads for better and worse about everyone, doesn't it? Well,
especially with makeup effects, there's definitely a trust issue. I mean, it's like being you know, especially when you're dealing with nudity and stuff like that. I think that's why, like I say, Jerry, when she called me for the help me, I'm in a bar, stranded kind of thing, you know. And I used to always make sure that if you ever did live casts on girls, there was always other girls, like I had office staff, and they would come and help. You know what I mean?
Like basically the Mike Pence rule.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it would always just as a courtesy and everything else. You know what I mean? You know, although I did hear years ago that John Schoonerad, he worked on Blade Runner, and apparently they'd worked on God, I've forgotten her name now. Who plays Rachel? What's her name? Sean Young.
Jared Aniston, you mean?
No, Sean Young. Sean Young in Blade Runner. In Blade Runner.
Right, yeah, Sean Young, yeah.
He said they did a live cast on Sean Young. And he said literally, he said she walked in like, you know, with a kimono on and like wearing a thong, just flew it off and said, "Come on, boys, have at it," you know, and like, you know, it was like, she's like, "I love having this done," and you know, they did a live cast on it. So you know, but you never know. He also did a live cast on Andre the Giant for Princess Bride, and he said he had to use something like 3 or 4 buckets of alginate to make a cast of his head. He said he's never used so much alginate in his entire life. So yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's some challenges of the work environment, and also one I can bring up on screen, like in reference to Gerard Butler and the name there. Mr. Tickletrunk says, "Listen to this man. He knows about the value of a memorable name. Sincerely, Mr. Tickletrunk."
See, Mr. There's a memorable I'm saying. I think out of all of your you know people who log on, I think and Mr. Tickletrunk are the ones I always remember. When I lie in bed at night, I think about Mr. Tickletrunk and
Yeah, exactly. Cortanis 001 wonders, how do you cast someone's head?
It's easy. You just cut it off and then just really. I'm surprised that people ask these questions now, because it seems like there's been so many kind of making of videos and all that. We used to use dental alginate, you know, that stuff when you go to the dentist and they put in a tray and they kind of make you gag by shoving that thing inside your mouth. We used to use
a little bit too well. Thank you very much. Like, don't bring back the memories.
Yeah, well, actually, a good dentist won't make you gag on that stuff. You have to know how to do it. 'Cause I've done teeth casts as well, and the trick is they overfill the tray sometimes, and they jam it in, and it all kind of gushes into the back of your throat, and that's
exactly. That's horrendous.
Yeah, but you can if you do it now to do it properly, you can do it without doing that. But what we generally use now is silicone. It's a safe silicone you can use on skin. But usually, all you do is you put a bald cap on somebody, and then you grease down their eyebrows or any facial hair, and then what you do is you know, you don't shove straws up their nose or anything like the people used to do, but you cover the whole head in this rubbery material, and then you do 2 layers of plaster bandage on either side, and then you pull off the plaster bandage and peel the silicone off, and that's how you do it. It takes about, if you can do it well, 15-20 minutes. The person's underneath it, and it can be quite claustrophobic. Certain people will freak out. The trick is you've got to keep talking to them and keep reassuring them. Johnny Depp loves having it done. Like, you have to try and talk him out of not having it because he thinks it's like a cool Zen experience. John Ritter hated having it done and was terrified. I had to actually go to John's house to do it. Ron Silver, who's an actor, actually did his in the Hollywood Hilton Hotel in the bathroom. And then while I was doing the work, he said, "Do you mind if I have a shower?" And he had a shower right behind me while I was working on his head cast. So yeah, I mean, I've cast hands, feet, I've cast virtually every body part there is, but heads, it's always tricky because the worst people casting heads used to be stuntmen usually, because they're the guys who want to be tough and macho and everything else. And they would come in, and as soon as you start putting stuff on their face, it would go over their nose and their eyes. They would go, "Oh," you know, they'd start to freak out. Whereas women tended to be a bit easier because women are used to having facials and mud packs and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's how you cast their head. And then when you've got the mold out, the negative, you fill it full of plaster or clay, and then you put the mold off, and you've got a pretty good version of their head. Or what you can do now, of course, is you can also send them down to a digital place where they'll scan their head, and then they'll mill out a version of the head in foam. But life casts are still pretty good. There are just some techniques you have to know how to do it, that's all.
Awesome. Well,
don't use plaster, though, because you'll end up pulling your eyebrows out.
Honestly, I wouldn't try it unless you know at least somebody who's done it in the past or a professional, because you could probably do some things really bad if you're not.
Don't just listen to the instruction and do it yourself. Like,
yeah,
a professional.
I just want to make sure that nobody just decides to go and try it. But there's a bit of something I got here to show.
Before that, just want to do this this thing on screen. Gary says, 42 years, born and raised in New Orleans. Us locals love to hear tourist stories. who wander into the wrong bars, and we know all of them. LOL.
Now, see, well, luckily, Valiant Renegade, when I did I did a film later on called, Jesus, it's gone from my brain now what the name of the film was, When the Bear Breaks. And I spent 4 months in New Orleans and dated a girl in New Orleans from NOLA. So I spent a lot of time going to all the bars that you guys don't tell the tourists about. So I got to go off the beaten path and spend all the time, all of the kind of the non-touristy stuff. And, so I do know. I got the inside vibe on it. So, yeah, cool place.
Yeah.
That's the one place where I remember after 3 days, once going, I have to stop drinking now. I've been buzzed for 4 days in a row, the whole day, all day long, buzzed all day.
And then Tom, you were saying something.
Well, someone we recently quasi met is just proving more and more that they've got to be the coolest person in the world. I don't even like Fast and the Furious, but Helen Mirren is trending right now because she's in the new Fast and Furious movie.
Oh, wow.
She can fucking do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She'd even do Midnight's Edge, which she has done. How about that, Gary? We've had the Helen Mirren on for a cameo, if nothing else. Yeah.
Awesome. She's amazing.
Yeah. No, because here a few weeks back, in conjunction with Paulie from the Latino Slant, we had like a reunion panel of the 90s urban classic Blood In, Blood Out, where we had the lead cast, we had the director, courtesy of Robert Meyer Burnett, who served as the host for that panel, and in the background of the director, there was his wife walking around listening in, and his wife, of course, is Helen Mirren. So then she came in and she did a cameo on Midnight's Edge. So that was pretty cool.
How is it that Helen Mirren's still sexy? She's sexy, right?
She's just cool because she just comes in. And I guess after watching, because we were just all over the place with that thing, she kept popping her head in and out like 4 or 5 times throughout. And then finally she just goes, "Hello, boys, how you doing?" Because it was just a bunch of guys hanging.
She's just sexy as well. She's just kind of naughty and a bit sexy. And
Taylor's a lucky man.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's so awesome, and she's so cool. She's been in so many great things, and like one of my favorite performances of hers is in Red, where she plays like this.
She's really good
Italian agent, and she's amazing. And yeah, as you say, she's like sexy as hell in it. That's even a plot point. So yeah.
What's funny is she's one of the only women at her age that I could buy in a Fast and the Furious movie driving a car like that.
Yeah, it was so yeah, that was something. And like the coolest thing is like we were like just like sitting there gobsmacked when Helen
Yeah, because she kept poking her head in. And you're like, is that wait, what? And then she finally just come in and said hello, and it was just like, oh my God.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
That's really cool. Like, who would have thought Helen Mirren doing a cameo appearance on Midnight's Edge? That's like one of my highlights there.
Well, who'd have thought Taylor Hackford or Robert Shea or any of the people, even Gary Tunnicliffe.
Yeah, even Gary Tunnicliffe. Like that was like nerve-wracking the first time we had Gary Tunnicliffe on.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no, it was. But that was also like really cool because you were like the, like actually the first real filmmaker to grace us with your presence. And there have been others since. But I always say when asked, and I actually told this to when I was interviewed by our good friend Lorena Creole over at her channel. I also reiterated like of all the interviews that we've had, the most fun was the first time we spoke with Gary J. Tunnicliffe.
For a long time. Long conversation.
So yeah, no, but that was amazing. And for those of you that have not seen it, you should absolutely go and check out the playlist Talking Hellraiser with Gary J. Tunnicliffe, because all of the main Tunnicliffe videos are in there, including the one about the Exorcist, and that actually harkens right back to the main topic of this video about the JJ cut, because that, like the Snyder cut, is an alternate cut of an already released movie. And like
I would say it's even more than
one,
an alternate cut. It's a
it's
completely
more,
different
because that's
film.
what I mean. Because like ground zero for all of those things of like going back and completely changing everything.
No, I mean, really,
Was The Exorcist beginning, and you were there for it, Gary. For those that haven't seen that video, can't you like reiterate the story of how Paul Schrader's Exorcist became Rennie Harlin's Exorcist, and how you fit into that?
Yeah, but I mean, but I will. But I mean, it would be akin to saying to JJ Abrams, "Look, we're not going to release the Rian Johnson movie. We don't like it, so we'd like you to shoot, the second,
That's honestly what they should have done.
But that's really what kind of that's what really happened. So Paul Schrader filmed, it was called The Exorcist. I can't remember what the original title was.
It was called the Dominion. Like the final title.
That was released.
Was when it was released.
That was what it was released as. But yeah, I think that was also called The Beginning. I think it was originally called The Beginning or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the release version.
So what happened?
No, I know, but I think the Schrader version also had that title.
Yeah. But what happened is that they'd made a $35 million film. They'd shot in Rome, at Cinecittà, and in North Africa. They'd shot the whole film. KMB did the effects, and Stellan Skarsgård was in it, and various other actors. And they'd filmed it, and they'd cut it, and then they got back, and it just didn't really work. So the initial plan was to bring in Patrick Lussier, who was the director of My Bloody Valentine 3D, and the editor on Scream and movies like that. A very good friend of mine and a brilliant director and writer. And they were going to bring Patrick in to basically consult and try and fix the movie. And the plan was to do 2 or 3 weeks of shoots to try and add some elements, and change the movie into something they would be more happy with. Anyway, Patrick couldn't. Bob Weinstein wouldn't release Patrick from his contract that he was working on. It might have been a Scream movie at the time, and wouldn't release Patrick. So David Robinson was friends with Rennie and brought Rennie in to do it. And Rennie said, "Look, if I'm going to do it for 3 weeks, we may as well reshoot the whole bloody thing and shoot for 8 weeks." So a budget was put together, and I got carried over as the effects artist because I met with Morgan Creek and got on well with them. And I pitched ideas for stuff, and I met with Rennie, and we had a really good meeting and got on very well. And within weeks, a new script was written, and then certain cast who Rennie thought and the studio thought were weak in the Schrader version were replaced and changed out. Most notably, the character that now was played by Isabella Scrocco and James Darcy in the new version. Stellan came back, and then within a very short time, we shot for a couple of weeks before Christmas, and then into the next year that time. And it wasn't a long shoot, and it wasn't a very expensive film. Everyone talks about it being $70-80 million budget film. It wasn't. I think the budget was between $18 and $24 million. It was shot very quick. They rebuilt. They've got some of the stages left over. We didn't go to Africa. We ended up shooting on the back lot of Cinecittà, where they shot the Flintstones 3 or something, or Flintstones 2, and they got all these rock sets, and we shot on the streets where they did some of the Rome sets and stuff. But the whole film was completely reshot. Very bizarre deja vu for Stellan Skarsgård, who was like, "I can't believe we're doing this again." And Alexander Hawley, I think, wrote the script, and I pitched in some ideas for certain sequences, some death sequences, and and then what happened was they released the film. I think it did $66 million at the box office. Did pretty well. Morgan Creek were very happy with it, very happy with the numbers. And people were like, "Do you think they'll release the Schrader cut?" And I was like, "Well, why wouldn't they? Of course they will." No, they won't do it. And I was like, "Why wouldn't they? It's money in the bank." Because there was a big uproar. People were going, "Oh, clearly Schrader's made this wonderful film. He's a brilliant director and a brilliant writer, and they just want a horror gore fest. That's all the studio care about. They don't care about the artistic integrity of Schrader's brilliant vision." And I'd seen the Schrader version, and I was like, "Yeah, it's not very good, I don't think." I certainly think Rennie's film is a much more, slick and commercial film. But sure enough, later on they released the Schrader version, which I think is very strange because people who stumble across it must have. I've had several people come to me and say, I saw like 2 versions of the same movie with some of the same cast in it, and it's like, was it a recut? And I was like, no, they were completely different directors and, different team on it. Same DP, same producer, but some of the key players were different. Very, very bizarre situation. Very bizarre.
Yeah, it indeed was. And for the full story of that, go and check out the full video that we put out on it, which I think is the most comprehensive on that particular topic anywhere. With that, I'm going to go back and check out some more super chats that you guys already sent in. Because we have a backlog of those, or some classic super chats to use like a less ageist term.
Legendary.
Super Nate said, Kevin Smith also cries at literally everything. So unless him saying something is mind melting, isn't saying anything really. And yeah, he's been like a little bit too hyped on too many occasions. A little bit like the boy who cried wolf. I say that as someone who likes Kevin Smith, but yeah, he's been doing that a little bit too much for it to have the same weight as it once did. Silver Nova says, perhaps the JJ cut is being mentioned to help boost his popularity for his upcoming work with DC and Superman. I don't think that he needs much more popularity within the studio and within the fans. I think that his upcoming Superman is going to speak for itself. Yeah, I'm not going to speculate. But,
feels more to me like an ego thing than anything.
Possibly, and he's going to need the ego hike that he can get, because after his Superman comes out, yeah, that's going to be something to behold. Commandant VHS says, I'd rather watch Thunder Force than the JJ cut. I haven't seen Thunder Force yet, and I'm in no rush to after seeing the reviews. Deborah Young says, this was out of 3 movies shown to a group of people, the one that was like the best, the JJ/Lucas version. And Daniela Maya says, I'd rather watch Paint Dry than any more JJ Star Wars. Deborah Young says, George came in at JJ's request and helped him and did the ending and directed more camel in a ton of scenes that were also cut. Yeah, a lot on the cutting room floor there. Nightwish fan 1991 says, I'm not particularly interested in a JJ cut. If it is the rumored Lucas edit, then I would be more interested. And Deborah Young then clarifies, sorry, Camel was supposed to be Mark Hamill. Okay, let's reread that quote then from what she said there with Mark Hamill. George came in at JJ's request and helped him and did the ending and directed more Mark Hamill and a ton of scenes that were also cut. So yeah, if the JJ cut is like a bigger Mark Hamill cut, then of course that would change everything, I think.
No, there's a lot more with Mark Hamill, is it? Because there's all the Jedi ghosts as well, and there's all that sort of stuff that they shot.
Yeah. Do you know anything about that?
I know only what's been out there, speculated by Mike Zero and stuff like that, talking about the Jedi ghosts. And apparently there's a lot more stuff with Jedi ghosts and, like I said, a lot more stuff with Mark Hamill, with Luke.
Yeah, and from what we have heard before, this is something that is a good reason why that would be cut, because we have heard very consistently that nothing can upstage Rey under any circumstance whatsoever, and if it does, it has to go. So that actually would be like a good case for a JJ cut. if there's more Mark Hamill and more Force Ghost in it, more things to upstage Rey. And we were just joined by Paulie from the Latinos land, and soon Midnight's Edge Español. ¿Cómo está?
I'm kind of hurt, but I'm doing okay. I need some therapy. Brown Lives Matter. Gary, very nice to meet you. It's very nice to meet you.
Yeah, Paulie, Gary, Paulie.
But Gary, I'm feeling dejected here.
You are?
Yeah. And I don't want to take away from your spotlight, but the Blood In Blood Out, panel. Andre totally just forgot about me. And,
no, I didn't. I said in conjunction with Paulie. I even said Paulie from the Latino. I was pretty sure.
Yeah, I totally missed it. I got the last end of it.
Yeah. Oh, then you missed it. No. You got credit. So you're feeling good for nothing.
It's I'm adding a little humor here. Anyways, didn't work. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, we're good, thank you. And Paulie then is the one who helped to set up the whole Blood In, Blood Out reunion panel, the one in which Helen Mirren made her cameo.
Hello, boys.
Yeah, and that's my girlfriend's favorite actor, so she freaked out when I told her that. But that was a group. That really was a village that took to make that panel happen. That was awesome. So
yeah, it's really was. Paulie, before we move on with the super chat, how excited are you for a JJ Abrams cut of Rise of Skywalker, or as I think it should be called, Rise of Palpatine?
right. Where's the Skywalker part, Lord? Skywalker's rose from the dead on that one. But I like what Gary had to say. That being said, right. I was listening to you earlier. I have to go with my boy Gary here because, I'm a fool, and I will fall. I'm such a fool that I love Star Wars so much that I will fall for going to see a JJ or Lucas cut, even if it's a bit better. Sure, why not? I wouldn't say I'm excited though. I would say I'm a sucker.
No, we're scared, right? We're all a bit kind of like, really, is it going to be a bit? It's either going to be, that sucked, or it's going to be, that was a lot better, or that was a really cool sequence, or again, we're all optimistic that anything might make it all, the hurt that was done better. That's all I'm hoping for.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, it was. There's so much PTS going on. It was so bad that it's like, well, can it be worse? It can't be worse, can it, Tom?
It can always be worse.
You can get worse.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that in this case, because here's the thing: in order for it to be released in theaters, as I said already, we know that it has to pass the Kathleen Kennedy test, which is nothing can upstage Rey in any way, shape, or form. I mean, that's why Rose Tico was dressed in a bag of potatoes. That's why the original cast were never reunited on screen, all of them. That's why Luke Skywalker was hidden in the first place, so that he couldn't upstage Rey. If there were to be a cut where that isn't the case, then that's probably means there's.
But that is the cut, because the cut's supposed to be where Kylo isn't dead. It's supposed to be her and Kylo together.
Yeah, so the Reylos would be all over that then.
It's her and Ben. Ben survives. I believe. Yeah. And that's the idea, is that it's her and Ben survive.
Yeah, it's kind of hard too, because it's like also too, it's because it's from that camp that this camp has attacked fans and just has no respect for Star Wars fans, for the OG Star Wars fans. That's the part of it, but I'm still an optimistic fool. That's my thing. So, well, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because it is Star Wars. I still care about Star Wars.
Yeah. And then Sarah Cheney says, and I can bring this one up on screen, we'll get back to the classic Super Chats momentarily. Anything would be better than the theatrical release. I'd really like to see JJ's version.
There you go, Sarah, some positivity. That's good.
Yeah, and Xenobit says, can it get worse? To quote Pinhead. Gary, you're going to have to do this.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
Doug Bradley, such sights to show you.
Doug Bradley will call me up and get annoyed at me for trying to steal his thunder.
There, I did.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Tom, you do it then. We have like.
We have such sights to show you.
Well, there's one bit before that. Abrams cut, like Abrams cut.
Abrams cut.
Imagination.
Such lack of imagination.
I want Tom to do it as George Lucas.
Abrams cut. Such lack of imagination. We have such sights to show you. The Gungans. I'm going to put the Gungans in there.
Yeah, the good stuff right there. All right. Yeah, and then to contrast, Kotko 05 says, I vote no Jar Jar cut. Let the past die, kill it if you have to. That's the only way to become what you were meant to be.
I get you.
Yeah. So, time to move on from there. And then moving on with some of the classic super chats that we can no longer bring up on screen. Nightwish fan 1991 says, for $10, thank you so much. Honestly amazed how The Force Awakens slipped by unnoticed. Actually think about the movie for a second and it has a ton of problems. There isn't really a story. Just point A to B to C, then done. No substance. And Dash D's says, for 25 Canadian dollars, thank you so much. Let's get a bit deeper. The issue isn't so much a JJ cut, it's JJ's vision of Star Wars. Whether he has 1 or 5 cuts, his vision will be the same. Lucas cut would be great, even if it sucked, because it's the Star Wars vision we love. Now, to be fair, I have to say that the Star Wars that we have isn't the vision of JJ Abrams. The Force Awakens is the joint vision of, first and foremost, Bob Iger, secondarily, Kathleen Kennedy, tertiary, JJ Abrams. And then from the Last Awakens onwards, increasingly, it was the vision of Kathleen Kennedy. So let's not give J.J. Abrams that much credit. He did the job that he was supposed to do, and whenever he got a note from either Kennedy or from Iger, his response was never to push back, but to say, okay. So yeah, it's not his vision. There's plenty of problems with that, but that's not the main problem here. And HBG3 says, I can't believe he's defending JJ and the sequels. Well, there you go. You believe it or not. And again, it's not really a defense as so much as saying that there's room for alternative. And says, I'd only watch the sequels if someone edits out the bad parts. A bit of re-editing, and you could get a completely different story. Indeed, you could, as was very clear in that movie above many, many others. And then moving on from there, we have Tiberius Monk, who says, Paulie, thank you for sharing your honesty. I'm hurting with you with what is happening in this country too, and I feel with you. Brown lives matter.
Sí. Qué dolor mi vida. Qué dolor mi vida.
See. And so
do you know what I said?
Que dolor is like how painful.
Yes, how painful this life is. How
yeah,
painful.
Sí. Yo entiendo un poquito español.
You know, what was cool was Tom this morning played Texas Tornadoes on Midnight's Edge Radio. And, I love that song. A little bit is better than nada.
Yeah.
I want some
Indeed, it
enchiladas.
is.
Who doesn't want enchiladas? Yeah, man.
I feel a little bit like Normex, but yeah, that's
When
that's
yeah,
me.
we keep saying this, but when you guys hit LA, I got a spot to take you at.
Yeah, I look forward to it, and then we have to show Tom that there's more to
I'll be there in May.
Spanish food than the taco.
Gary said he'd be there in May.
I'll be there in May.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we
Where is
got
it? Where is it? Is it in the valley or is it somewhere else?
Gilbert's El Indio. It's on
Where?
Pico Boulevard in West LA, and that's always a good place to go to take people to, because it's run by a family of 3 generations, the Rodriguezes, and
I think Norrington lives quite close to there, so I'll drag Norrington along. Because,
say that again.
Stephen Norrington lives fairly close to that area, so I'll that's where I'll meet there.
It's very popular, that spot. Ed O'Neill goes there all the time. Amy Adams, but that's not why you should go. I mean, you know it.
Hello, I'd like the Amy Adams, please.
Yeah, she's a cutie, man.
I'm sure
She's a
Ed
cutie.
O'Neill is doing
Can I
it,
have
isn't it?
two?
But you can come too.
No, I said, can I have 2 of the Amy?
Can I have 2? Yeah.
I came here for chimichangas and Ed O'Neill. Now, where is he?
Yeah.
Where's Ed? But that's a great spot.
I brought my Married with Children box set for him to fucking sign, and I'm not leaving until I see it.
I bought it. I bought a burrito. I want this signed, Dad. Yeah, that's a great
I
spot.
got Dutch here too. Just wait.
I need to take Robert Meyer down there and Cameron. Cameron lives really close to there. Cameron Pasha. He lives in Santa Monica. Then I'll put it in the chat.
Cool. Sounds good. You're getting hungry now.
I know.
Yeah.
I do have to leave here fairly soon, and I know Gary's limited on time as well. So, what do we got left for super chats, Andre?
For super chats, I don't know. So we have. I'm just taking it from the reverse order now. So like less classical to more classical, and Stephen Otten says, "I want Chasing Amy era Kevin Smith back."
Yeah.
And
you ever met Kevin?
Dead of a heart attack.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Kevin? Gary, you ever met Kevin?
I haven't. No, it's weird.
I might come to surprise. Yeah, he's like met everybody. So like,
yeah. But Kevin Smith hasn't made like too many movies that feature loads of gore that requires.
He has more so in the last few years.
Yeah,
no,
more so, but not enough so.
And it was weird because there was a situation where I do remember after Dogma, the producers.
I was going to say, you didn't get an offer to make the Poop Monster?
Well, yeah, this is why, because the Poop Monster, Vince Guastini did the effects, and I know that Weinstein's weren't very happy. So on Kevin's next film, they were like, "We'd like to maybe bring you in. Would you do a quote?" But I know Kevin was very loyal, and always stood by his people. So he was good like that. So I respected that. But no, it's I've worked with Jason Mewes. Tom, you've muted your mic, by the way, in case you don't know. But I've worked with Jason Mewes, and I was always hoping that maybe Silent Bob would just turn up one day, because I was working with Jay. But
that's cool.
Well, Jason Mewes was in Feast, so I think the first thing I ever said to him was Snoochie Boochies. I was like, Snoochie Boochies, and he was like, yeah, Snoochie Boochies.
God, had so many great one-liners in that first film.
Yeah, indeed. And then we had a question from Michael Miller, who wonders, Gary, I got to ask, what is the opinion and perception of Kurtzman-made Star Trek in the industry? Is it a joke? That this, of course, then would be Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard. I don't know if you follow that at all, or like if you've heard any kind of like chatter about it from your peers.
No, the only people I've spoken to about any of this is just the people who do the makeup and stuff like that, So it's always just been makeup talk, but I don't know what the general regarding Kurtzman is. I mean, I know that every little thing and every little decision was by committee. You know what I mean? Everything, especially regarding costume and design and makeups and everything had to be seen again and again and again and again. So I can only assume that that everything is being over pondered and over concept, overthought, and everything else. It just doesn't sound like much fun to me. But no, I don't really know. All I know is that, like I say, from the makeup effects and some of the design crew on there, that everything had to kind of go through a million. It was all, big committee and kind of like everyone having to approve it, and there's various entities involved. So it didn't sound very again like we're talking about with JJ. It's like you don't know on these situations with the real politics of what goes on behind the scenes of people saying, look, it's not your fucking movie. Yes, you're the director, and yes, we've hired you, but we're going to change it. We own the pink slip, and we're going to do what we want with it. So you go along with it, and that's the end of it. And directors aren't going to obviously we've all seen directors who've been like, yeah, it's the greatest thing, I'm so proud of this movie, blah blah blah, and then a month after it comes out, go, it's not the movie I wanted to make, I was fucked over by the studio, blah 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 blah. So it's so difficult to know, and like I say, honestly, that's what scares me about big budget productions sometimes. Even as a makeup effects artist who has worked on big budget films, to me it takes all the fun out of it. You can make more money, but the truth is that you're just there's no freedom. There's no freedom to just stretch and do what you do. Everything's just over-analyzed, and from the script to the wardrobe to the costumes to the makeup and everything else.
Yeah. And then we have one that we can bring up on screen. Rod Thunderheart says, for 10 Canadian dollars, hail Midnight Sedge. You heard about Mrs. Doubtfire R-rated cut. Apparently, Chris Columbus confirmed he's got several hours of Robin Williams just improving. I guess he means improvising, crazily veering into R-rated
I was going to say, with Robin Williams,
that
wouldn't be too hard to do.
Yeah. I've never heard about any such thing, but I'd rather take me a DVD or a Blu-ray with just the outtakes.
I mean, yeah, weren't we talking about Robin for what movie was it, Tom? The other day, Mario Brothers. Mario Brothers.
Oh yeah, because he was one of the guys who
Super Mario.
He
Brothers.
actually wanted to be in it because he was a huge Nintendo fan.
I would just watch anything that Robin does as far as like outtakes, auditions.
There's probably hours of tapes from like all the voices he's done.
Well, you took me back again this morning when you played Steve Martin, King Tut. I was like, dude, I had that vinyl.
I have it too. It's really well worn though.
God, yeah, that's such a great vinyl. Then I had Comedy,
like I said,
Pretty.
With Robin Williams, it's probably not too hard at all to get an R-rated cut of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just let him go crazy and you're going to get something R-rated. And with that, let's continue with the classic Super Chats in reverse classical order. ActionCom says, could you make a Mission Impossible grade mask to fool guards and close allies? Yeah, this is a good question. Gary, it's possible to make the kind of mask that you could put over someone's face to look like someone else, to fool someone, like Darkman style. Could that be done?
Yeah, it's being done. Well, it's been... even now you can buy some very good masks, but how do I say this? There are organizations around the world who've been in touch with various makeup effects people, and these have been made and used.
Very cool.
Yes.
And
if you go online and even look, there's a company called Immortal Masks who make some brilliant masks. The silicons are getting thinner all the time, but they used to look very masky at first, and the blend around the eye was always an issue. I did a film called The Wedding Ringer, where we did Joe Namath and 7 other guys, and it was a very intense football sequence. And they're supposed to be old guys who basically beat up these young guys. So they had a bunch of older actors, and obviously they couldn't do the physicalities of the real football game. So the situation was put up, should we put them all in makeup, or should we do, how much would it cost to do makeups on these guys? And I said, look, you're going to need new pieces every day. If a piece gets banged off in a scrummage or something, or a takedown, it's going to, ruin it. And I said, I think we can do masks. And we did silicone masks, and This was a few years ago, and I mean, you could stand very close to people and you wouldn't know. People thought it was Joe Namath at the times, and they're like, "Oh, that's Joe," and I go, "No, that's the guy in the mask." And ours weren't as good as they are now. But if you look online, there's a company called Immortal Masks who do brilliant masks, especially the ones that have got facial hair and they've got beards on them as well, and glasses and stuff. If you've got beards and really nice punched hair on them, and glasses and stuff, yeah, you can be standing inches away from someone and they wouldn't know. I did a thing where I walked into a room to show a producer the same thing. The way I got the job was I said, "I've got an idea for you. Hold on a second." And I walked out, put a mask on, walked back in, and waved at them all. And they all waved at me. They didn't realize it was me. And then I walked back in and pulled the mask off. You know, literally Mission Impossible style. And they were like, "Holy shit! Like that was you?" And I was like, "Uh-huh." So yeah, it can be done. And there are agencies, you know, in various forms that are actually using them now.
All right, that escalated quickly, but yeah, that's a really
Wait,
cool.
I got a button for that
question.
And I do, and
that escalated quickly.
Anyway, you're saying, Gary, my bad.
The funniest thing is, a few years ago, this is a true story, a makeup effects artist actually in the Valley in the Los Angeles area actually robbed several banks. A guy who worked on Spider-Man 2 and several films, and was recently jailed, I think 2 or 3 years ago, for 10 years for armed robbery. And this is a fairly well-known makeup effects artist who had a company with his brother, and was known as the Dual Valley Bandit. He'd walked into several banks and robbed them. And the funny thing was, he literally was wearing a baseball cap and a pair of glasses. And I think every makeup effects artist, when we heard it, well, first of all, we were shocked and stunned. But we were like, you would really think that a guy who did makeup effects would have done a makeup on himself or something, you know what I mean? Or a mask, but he didn't. And it was like stunning to me. It's like, really, of all the people you think would actually use that technology, you know, he didn't. But I do remember as well, years and years ago when I was in England, we'd get phone calls sometimes, and literally you'd get a phone call going, "Hello, could you do a makeup on a guy so people couldn't tell who it was?" You know, and I go, "Yeah, absolutely. What's it for? A film play? It's for a thing, you know, just a very dodgy sounding guy." And I was thinking, is this guy going to do a bank robbery or something? You know, wants to look different for it. So, but the short answer to the question is yes. It can be done now. Very Mission Impossible style.
All right. On that note, ActionCom wonders, Gary, can you make Tom look like Andre?
Oh, how I wish.
Could I make Tom look like Andre? No.
I can't lose that. I'd have to lose a bunch of weight.
Again, yeah, there are certain things like, you know, that does come into play. To make somebody else look like somebody else is tricky. I did do a thing a few years ago where a magician was doing a trick where he would be on stage and then he would appear at the back of the auditorium. And the way we did it was by doing a mask on a double. But the only way we were able to make it actually work was I had to measure the guy's head and make sure his head was actually exactly the same size. And then we actually did a live cast of the guy so that it was actually sculpted on the other person's head. So the interior form was exactly the same, so there was no distortion. And that worked very well as well. But that's harder, to make somebody look like another person. To make somebody look like a generic older person or a generic character is easier, but to make them look like an exact lookalike. But even now, a lot of stunt drivers, we do masks of actors, and we'll put masks on stunt drivers to drive around in, and the masks are very, very good. Very, very good.
Yeah. And on that note, Track Media Only wonders, might have been asked, but since kind of the topic, if he has seen it, what is Gary's take on the 86 FX movie?
FX, you mean FX Murder by Illusion?
Yeah, exactly, the one with Brian Dennehy and the other guy. I've forgotten his name.
Brian Dennehy. Bok choy got great texture like alien skin. That was a classic. You know, I mean, no, it's fantastic. I mean, I remember going through watching that movie in slow motion and freeze framing the VHS to look what they were doing and going, what's that for? And what are they doing there? I mean, and actually the funny thing is, there's actually a line in there where Brian the Australian guy. What's his name?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I can't remember his name.
He says something like, "Throw those smoke pots out the back," and he says, "No, the ones from Hellraisers," which I always thought was hilarious. He says, "No, the ones from Hellraisers," you know. So yeah, I mean, I actually like that movie because, I mean, again, it was kind of fun, and you know, I mean, always with makeup effects in films, they tend to be a bit. You know, like the application's really, really fast, like the Mrs. Doubtfire thing, like, you know, pull it on and pull it off kind of thing. It was like, that doesn't work, you know, for a makeup. But no, I loved the. It was just, again, because it was I wasn't a professional makeup effects artist at the time.
Brian Brown was his name.
Brown, yeah, Brian Brown. I know a funny story about Brian Brown. I have to tell you that another time. Yeah, I know a very funny story about Brian Brown. That's an R-rated story. But yeah, no, I loved it. So I did Murder by Illusion. Yeah, when I first saw the trailer, I was very excited because it's like, that's what I want to do. That's makeup effects, and that's all. Again, it kind of gave validity to what I was learning because I was still kind of DIYing it at home. So you know, it was great. It was great to see all that stuff. I remember seeing the vac form shelter for the first time. And again, if someone was asking about casting ahead, but they do a live casting that on Jerry Orlack, you know, in the back of his truck. I always dreamed of having an effects truck like Brian Brown did in that movie. And then years later, actually, I worked on Effects the Series, which was shot up in Canada, oddly enough. So I got to work on Effects the Series. In case you didn't know, did you know they did a TV series of that movie?
Yeah, with like what was her name? Cox something. Julie Cox, was that her name? She was like the standout from that.
I tell you who was in it as well. In the pilot episode was my brain's just had it complete. Carrie Celine from Matrix. Carrie Ann
Moss.
Carrie Ann Moss, yeah.
Yeah, she was in the pilot episode. She was in the pilot episode of Effects the Series.
And with that, I have to bid you gentlemen adieu. And hopefully I make it out alive. I'll see you guys hopefully on the flip side. Take care, everybody.
See you soon,
all
bro.
right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so
take care, brother.
Weird, strange, again, working on, you know, bigger. Yes, I loved Effects the movie, then got to work on the series, and oddly enough, Carrie Ann Moss was in that. So how strange is that? Small world.
Yeah, indeed. And also on the question of masks, Mr. Tickletrunk wonders, Gary, what about making two people look like a third? Is that easier to make identical faces on two people? How much does someone's facial structure factor in?
Remember, two people look like a third?
Yeah, basically. So say that, okay, imagine then that you don't want, you're not trying to make two, say that you have two actors, and you want both of them to look like Pinhead. So they don't have to look like each other, but you want both of them to look like an idealized Pinhead. Depends on
the, like, if you were say, I need two actors to look like Darkness from Legend, that big red demon character.
Yeah, exactly. You need two actors to look like that.
That would be pretty easy to do because it's such a big verbose kind of makeup. You know what I mean? It's such an exaggerated kind of character. So that'd be a lot easier to do. But if it was more sleek and refined, if it was two actors like we needed them to look like Abraham Lincoln, then certain faces lend themselves to Abraham Lincoln and certain faces don't. You know, this is one of the problems they had with the Hellraiser Revelations was the actor they cast, Stephen Smith Collins. You know, I mean, had I been involved, I would have raised a red flag immediately and gone, you can't cast this guy. His face really isn't going to work. He's got the wrong facial structure for to play Pinhead. And it shows. And the makeup, you know, people always rag on the makeup artist, but the makeup's very well executed makeup and applied by a very good makeup artist, Richard Redlefson. But when I did Judgment, the actor I cast, and one of the reasons I cast Paul T. Taylor was because I knew his face would lend itself to that makeup. And I mean, and if you look at Paul T. Taylor in Hellraiser Judgment, he has the look of Doug Bradley a little bit, you know what I mean? Because, you know, his face had that same kind of structure. So, yeah, it does come down to facial structure. Obviously, if you've got someone with a big, round, heavy face, you can't make them look like a skinny face. You know what I mean? you know, it's so facial anatomy definitely comes into it. Yes.
Yes, all right. And then moving on with some of the more classical super chats. Then we have HyperGyver2 said for $10, thank you so much, reminds me of a con I was at. I literally walked into my hotel room, my wife and this girl she met a few hours earlier, and somehow I ended up getting roped into painting a total stranger's whole body. Oh yeah, there you go. Anything can happen at conventions, even like your body makeup. And Zenobit sent us two super chats for $5 each, so thank you so much. And he says, first, when JJ Abrams was promoting Cloverfield, he said Godzilla wasn't epping enough and King Kong was too cute. And then, the only JJ cut I want is where they cut JJ Abrams out. So, yeah. And Mr. Tickletrunk says, yeah, we got this one, knowing the value of a memorable name. And Stephanie Yanisek Smuggler's Cantina says, I actually met Jerry the night before the night before the premiere of Phantom of the Opera. So, yeah, cool, small world. And I met him for the Norwegian premiere of Law Abiding Citizen.
Cool. Yeah. Vastly underrated.
And Durao On says, oh, this is a nice one. Hail Midnight Sedge. Thank you, Andre, for being the only YouTuber who can read my name properly. Oh, fantastic. I'm very glad to hear that, Durao On, because that means I got it right. So thank you. And House Atreides says for 10 Canadian dollars, after seeing the trailer to In Search of Tomorrow, I've been thinking of how lucky I was to have my teen years in the 80s. Such a great time to be a fan. Then there is the nightmare of being a fan today. Yeah, it's quite a different experience. And Kit Kat sent us a smiley shocked face super sticker for 10 British pounds, so thanks for that. And Valiant Renegade says, oh yeah, we got this one about Verhoeven not being happy about the first take of Kennedy's death. And Hypergiver clarified for $10. Gundam is about the war between the Earth and the space colonies as they fight for their independence from the Earth's sphere. There is no defined good or evil. It's a war drama with giant robots. So yeah, that's what Netflix will be doing in live action. Fingers crossed for that. Cyber Soldier 3 says, Terminator Salvation could have worked as a trilogy if they looked at what people didn't like and moved forward. And Darius Münchhausen is holding out for the Snooki cut. Now, don't hold your breath for that. And Kim Schwarzbach says for 50 Danish krona, to Tom, is the lab dance really so much better when the stripper is crying? We just missed Tom, but I'll forward that to him for later. And Infinity Flare says...
Wait a minute, let me write this down. Strippers,
crying.
Tom...
Yeah. Strippers crying. Yeah, that's all he needs to know.
Latino slant strippers. Okay, thank you.
We'll go to the jumbo clan room when I come over and we'll see.
Oh man, I can't. They won't let me out anymore like that. This Mexican food.
Well, that's what we'll tell them.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes.
And then Infinity Flare said, with small children, streaming works better for me. Yeah, absolutely. See, that's a point for Gary. And Stephen Otten says, I'm with Andre. I'm hoping Dune will be the masterpiece the fans deserve. Yeah, so do we all. And 52 movies a year says, I would watch, insert my username, in the theater. Yeah, okay, so basically... 52 movies a year would watch 52 movies a year in the theater. Our local 8-screen theater is independent and charges $8 to $10 per ticket. They also serve Pepsi. And Michael Millard says, old studio model is dead. Studios will fund and make. Production companies are a thing of the past. And then Tebius Tobak, my fellow countryman, says, first for 20 Norwegian krona, Godzilla vs. Kong hasn't opened in Europe, mostly. Yeah, no, there's no theaters to open in when it's complete lockdown, as we have here in Norway right now.
So good.
And then he said for another 50 krona, how well has Max done the advertising for the Snyder Cut in the US? HBO is still promoting it in Norway, and Wonder Woman 84 not as much, which came out on March 26th. So yeah, you have like some delayed international releases. Gary, you're in Romania right now, but Paulie, you're in the US. How well was the Snyder Cut promoted over there?
Billboards all over, you know. And as far as kind of like the interface of like my cable and all that stuff and the Amazon Fire Stick, you saw their posters as well, you know, HBO Max. So a lot. Well,
yeah, pretty heavy advertising. And then
not as big as Godzilla though. As far as,
obviously, because like the budgets are different, because like the Snyder Cut isn't a $400 million movie. It's with advertising $100 million separate projects, independent of the movie that flopped a few years back. And then Zenith Works said for $5, there is value in the movie-going experience. It makes the movies seem better, like you have to go watch it on the big screen. Yeah, but only for the movies that lend themselves to that, I would argue. And then William Sova says, hello, Andre, Tom, and Gary. The Force Awakens is a film that needed the sequel to justify its existence, and the sequel did not. Yeah, exactly. That's the point I was making. That the legacy of The Force Awakens, in my opinion, it's decided by the sequel because there's so many boostery boxes and it pushes so many things forward, and The Last Jedi just kind of like, you know, stepped all over that. Yeah, and in that way it retroactively made the Force Awakens worse. It's my opinion.
No.
Then Cyber Soldier III said JJ should just have done the Dallas routine, and he could have been able to do more and better than picking up the pieces from The Last Jedi. And Roger H says, music matters, yes. I'm sure most of us have seen Darth Vader coming out of his shuttle to the tune of True by Spandau Ballet. Bullet? Ballad? I don't know.
Spandau
Ballet.
Spandau Ballet.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So true. Funny how it seems.
I've only heard gold from them.
You are gold. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
I got all that vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big Spandau thing. What's that?
I said, always believe in your soul.
Always believe in your soul. Yeah, because you got the power to know, Gary. You're indestructible.
Gee, okay, I will always associate that song with where I first saw it, which actually was like in a short. I think it was like 4 men in a car. It was like that's something that came out of like that. Those comedians that did like the young ones and everything. Like you're like your body double from Bottom. He's in that one.
Well, you know, the real big exposure was when True was in 16 Candles with John Hughes. Yeah. That was, and then they I've seen them live. God, I'm old.
Tony Hadley, Martin Kemp, Gary Kemp.
Gary Kemp became an actor for a little while.
They both did actually, Gary and Martin, because Martin was in Waxworks 2 and played Frankenstein, and I cut his head off.
Had no idea. Look at that. There's a connection, Andre.
Yeah, and it was Frankenstein even. How awesome.
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow,
and I cut his head off. I crushed his head, actually. So, yeah. So I met him, he came in, and I was like, yeah. Yeah, very. Yeah. But his brother was the more, well known of the actors of the two.
That's the cool thing with Gary. He knows everyone. He's worked with everyone. Has a story. About everything.
Ridiculous, the kind of little silly little things that happen. Like I say, like spam head balling or something like that. So it's bizarre. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, very cool. I'm just gonna get caught up here. Nightwish fan 1991 says, "I'd rather see the Edwards cut of Rogue One." And Old Redneck Nerd says Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut is better too. Yeah, I agree completely. I just dislike the name because that's a real director's cut, whereas the thing in theaters is the Studio Hatchet cut. And Yellow Flash 2 said Lord of the Rings Extended blow away theatrical. Yeah, we spoke about that. Again, that's the real movies are the extended ones, whereas the theatrical are the compromised cuts. And T Neil 89 said for $10, thank you so much. Maybe it's just me, but for all the flaws of the prequels, and they are many, I appreciated that it felt like it added a sense of bigness to the universe, something the sequels lacked. And Yellow Flash 2 also said, to be fair, that's any movie, Tom. Take the music out of the Jason movies. It's a guy running through the woods. Yeah, this was in reference to Tom's earlier comments about like the epicness of the music when Darth Vader went out of the shuttle. Fair point, Yellow Flash. Very fair point. Nightwish fan 1991 says the world building in the Force Awakens is absolute garbage, practically non-existence.
What world building? Eesh.
Yeah, well, opinions are relatively unison on the subject.
Yeah.
And says, I'd only watch the sequels if someone edits out the bad parts. A bit of re-editing, and you could get a completely different story. That sounds familiar. We got that one before, I think. I'm just going to do a quick refresh here because we are close to caught up, but we're not quite there just yet. Just getting back to where we were. Yeah, here we are. Film School Rookie says, I'd love to talk to Cameron. What's his social media and or email? I think you probably mean Kamran Pasha. He has a website. It's simply like kamranpasha.com. So you can reach out through Kamran to that. kamranpasha.com.
And he's going to be on a Mandy Summers show later today.
So go check out Mandy Summers channel in just a few hours.
In a few hours, yeah. So
yeah.
You know what? I'll grab that link and I'll put it in the chat if you don't mind.
Yes, do that. And Rob Thunderheart says for $10. Hail Midnight Sedge. You heard about this was the Miss Doubtfire one. We caught that one. And Kim Schwarzbach wonders, did Tom get my Bloodhound Gang reference earlier? He probably did, because Tom is a huge fan of the Bloodhound Gang, as am I, incidentally. Then we have Tiberius Monk, who said Rise of Skywalker is one of the most disappointing films in years, to the point that I left the theater shocked with nothing to say. I'm done. And Mr. Tickle Trunk says, we also caught this one about making two people look like a third one, like Pinhead style. And then we got Joel Rice, who says for €2, not a super sticker. Well, thank you for the support in any event, whether it be super sticker or super chat, and thank you for differentiating between the two. And here, then, of course, we have the link to Mandy's channel. And here is the link to the video later today. And Tom confirms that, yes, he got the Bloodhound Gang reference, as I said before. he's a big fan of Bloodhound Gang.
And,
Gary, are you a fan of the Bloodhound Gang, or is it mostly Slayer and stuff like that?
Actually, I'm not a big fan of Slayer. Not a huge fan of Slayer. Bloodhound Gang, not really. Again, I'm more right now. I'm into a band called Powerwolf, but Ghost, Powerwolf, Michael Schenker, UFO, Scorpions, Judas Priest, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I listen to everything, and then a lot of soundtracks, John Barry and Vangelis, stuff like that. So pretty much everything. But 80s music, I do love 80s music. I mean, you put on a good 80s mix for me, and so very few things I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of hip hop and rap, but unless it's Insane Clown Posse. I love Insane Clown Posse.
Oh, there you go. So
a little bit of everything is a renaissance.
Yeah. Gary's a juggalo.
Yeah. I am a juggler, actually. I'm a full on.
And we're connected, me and Gary, with Mr. Tickle Trunk.
I've seen him 2 or 3 times live. So.
Mr. Tickle Trunk is the first guy to sent me a super chat. So, can never forget that name, Mr. Tickle Trunk.
Him and
right, I know he liked that one too.
I'm gonna have to compare. I'm afraid, guys.
No.
Yeah, all right. We're about to round out anyway. But Gary, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your stories. It's always a delight to have you on.
You're welcome, Andre, and it's great to meet you too, Paulie. Looking down there, doing my Brady Bunch thing. Ah, you are. I had to say, hey, how you doing?
Gary, it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure, sir.
And I'll look forward to meeting you in LA, and we'll only go for Mexican food. We won't do anything else. Just
Mexican.
That's fantastic. And I look
just flan all over my shirt.
Right.
And I look forward to, hopefully, if everything goes well, going there in August myself.
Why do you have glitter on you? They had glitter at the glitter and cheap perfume at the Mexican restaurant. Yes, they did. Yes.
Stop it, Gary. You'll get me in trouble.
Take care, guys. I'll see you soon. Be safe.
Take care, and we speak later. And thanks for joining us. And love to have you on to tell more stories later on.
That's great. And take care, everyone on Midnight's Edge, and see you all soon.
Take care. All right. So, Paulie, what's up with you?
Well, a lot is going on. First thing is Midnight's Edge Espanol, episode 2, test run, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Latino Slant channel. So please, get on over there. Myself, Pablo, Geek Tropology, and Diego Flores be talking about some more news items in Espanol.
Yes, very cool. So everyone be sure to check that out. And then Roland S. Says nobody wants to see the JJ Abrams cut. So it could be interesting though, but I have to say there are many other cuts I would be more interested in seeing than that particular one.
Yeah, if it's somehow like just the footage that Lucas shot, I'm in. But if it's, anything to do with anything else, then
If it's just an extended version of the cut we already got, then what would be the point?
Right. Yeah. What would be that last movie was a nightmare.
I think they all were, honestly, because again, I'm not into Star Wars. I've never been.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Okay. No, really, that surprises me because I always keep on repeating, like it means nothing to me. Like I just analyze it because it's kind of like what I do.
Sure.
But I didn't grow up with Star Wars, so I've never claimed to be a fan myself. Like I like that things are made for the fans because the fans are the ones that kind of like get the property, and my mentality has always been that if you win the fans over, you will win everyone else over too. Whereas many in Hollywood seem to have like this attitude that no, we're not aiming for the fans, we're aiming for the general audience. But what they don't seem to get is that the fans are the general audience. It's just the general audience that discovered this particular property. And if you please them, then what you're actually doing is that you're ramping up what made this particular property, whether it be Star Wars or anything else, appealing in the first place. So by making it appeal to the fans, you will actually make it appealing to everyone. Whereas when they have like this thing that, we don't want to, we want it to be accessible to everyone. Yeah, but in so doing, you just make it bland and for no one.
Yeah, you know, I grew up 7-year-old going to the first Star Wars in the theater, and then when Empire came out, I took the bus. I was allowed to take the bus to Westwood Village, and my dad, where he worked, he would give me money, and I would go and watch. I saw Empire Strikes Back at the Avco Theater 9 times by myself. So I was at that generation when Phantom Menace came out. I was, completely heartbroken because it was, such a bad movie experience. It was such a letdown. It was such a letdown. But, up until
whereas that's actually funny because that was I had seen all of the Star Wars movies for the first time just prior to the release of the Phantom Menace.
Okay.
That was like I knew of them, but I had just never gotten around to actually see them.
Yeah. By then, I mean, they had the special editions that came out in the theater like maybe a year or two before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had taken my little cousins.
It was after those that I first saw the Star Wars movies.
Yeah. I mean, I was already entrenched. So I was like, we're gearing up for Phantom. We're gonna go to see these movies. I'm gonna take some younger family members. And that was a blast. That was amazing because they were all at the Man's Chinese Theater, and each one, Mark Hamill showed up and gave out stuff. He's not, not the Ryan Johnson Mark Hamill.
I get it. I get it completely.
But yeah, like again, I go back to saying, so that's that optimistic fool in me, where I'm like, Scooby Snack, Star Wars, ruh-roh.
Yeah, no, I've been that optimistic fool for so many other properties, though. Although I wasn't one for Star Wars. Like it took me a while to catch on to how bad Episode 1 really, really was, because I had pulled an all-nighter the day that I saw it. So I was and I saw it at a 6 o'clock in the morning screen or something, because they showed it around the clock, kind of made a thing out of it, seeing it in the middle of the night and stuff.
Yeah.
And I did that. So I went out to party the night before, and I pulled an all-nighter, and I thought I would be awake and alert, and I wasn't. I felt like I'm kind of drifting. I couldn't. The movie didn't hold my attention. It felt like I fell asleep a couple of times in it. The whole thing was dreamy and weird, and I came out just confused. Had to remind myself, what the hell was that story really about? What the hell really happened there? I have to see that again, and because I was too tired, I was too out of it. And then I did see it again. And then I was awake and alert. It was no freaking different. That's when I realized I probably was alert the whole time. It was just a movie. I was a dreamy mess. Which kind of was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I can ask you what were you a fool of, but I know we would.
I can. It's not a secret at all.
Yeah.
For instance, Alien versus Predator. I was so psyched for that movie. That movie
really
was. Yeah. I was all over it because I had read the Dark Horse comic on which the movie is very loosely based, and that comic is incredibly good. Just like the RoboCop versus Terminator comic, the Alien versus Predator comic is fantastic. If you haven't read it, go look up the first one, the first Alien versus Predator storyline. That story is the best Predator since the original Predator movie, and it's the best Alien since Aliens. So really, if
No,
you
I had a
were
great
to
time.
make
It was
that movie,
kick ass.
right? Yeah, and the movie itself,
That
it
was fun in the
so,
theater.
No, it wasn't. Not
I
not
thought it was.
relative. Not relative to
Well,
to the sourse material, because I
I
compared it to the source material,
right,
and it
right.
was such a letdown compared to that.
Okay, I'm a normie on that one
Yeah,
completely, and
yeah,
I had fun. But then again, I was probably on a date and just having a good time. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So like the movie's probably like fun on its own, but compared to the comic and what it should have been, it's just a disaster and a joke. So yeah.
Well, I'm crazy about The Walking Dead, and I'm one of those persons that have watched every new episode to this day, and I got rewarded because they did a whole episode. It ended the season 11 of this disaster of a season. Well, let's be honest, the last 5 seasons have been a disaster, but I still watched every episode, Andre.
Yeah,
because I love Negan, and I loved that Jeffrey Dean Anderson or Jeffrey Dean Morgan, right? I forgot.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I always forget his name until someone tells me.
Right. They had an origin episode, and it was all him, and it is one of the greatest episodes in years. I mean, I've seen it already now 4 times, and I'm gonna do a video on it. Like, I'm like so geeked out of it. I'm just like, what? I'm like, yes, finally. So, anyways, that's one of my that's one of my foolish loves is The Walking Dead.
I don't believe we all have them. And on that note, Zenobit. Oh, I like that name. I see what you did there. Says, I want the Event Horizon deleted scenes cut. Yes, that's a movie that desperately needs an R-rated cut, is Event Horizon. That's in bad need of one. And
that was with Larry Fishburne?
Yes, that's with Larry Fishburne. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, but it's nothing compared to the director's cut, which remains unseen. And that is Paul Anderson, who incidentally also directed Alien vs. Predator. But Event Horizon is his best movie, bar none. And the version in theaters was really butchered and mauled by the studio. And the director's cut of that, which for some goddamn reason they're withholding, that would be incredible. And then Valiant Renegade says, well done, Andre. Great show. Oh, thank you. Looking forward to the Norse mythology stories for Crumb. Hope all in the chat who can support Midnight's Edge memberships will do so. Yes, what he's talking about is that I am narrating the stories of Norse mythology. And the first one will go live to members of the Crumb level shortly after this show ends. So then that's when that will be coming out. And the introduction to the series has already been published to all members. So yeah.
Yes, I'm a member, and it's way cool to get this to get the sneaky peekies.
Indeed. And Sturmhart Eisenkeil says, if you want to make everyone happy, you make no one happy. That's just the way it is. Agreed, Andre. You see, I'm smart sometimes. And ActionCom just said for $5, Andre, there's an episode of MacGyver called Deadly Dreams that delves into Norse mythology. Interested in seeing it and giving your thoughts? Yeah, sure. If you can hook me up with that episode, I'd be happy to take a look at it. Absolutely. And with that, I believe we are all caught up. So, Paulie,
Yes, sir.
What do you want to plug? What is it that people have to see on the Latino Slant very, very soon?
Well, on the Latino Slant, we as you know, we got monetized, and when we started our membership levels, and with that, we are doing a monthly movie night with a filmmaker or an actor or someone connected to the film. So next week, Alejandro Marin Montoya in his film Monday is going to be screened for members only. And he's he's actually a huge fan of yours, Andre.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been following for years." I'm like, "Oh shit!" And the thing with Monday, there's two things. There's a lot of great things about this movie Monday. It was produced under Robert Rodriguez's Rebel with a crew, so he only had $7,000 to film the movie with. It's a great story. He's a great story, Alex, the filmmaker. And the next thing was that he wrote the sequel to Monday as a comic book called Tuesday. So he will have that in tow, part of the of our first movie night next week. So I mentioned that, and so please come and subscribe to the Slant and check out our membership levels. However, as well, Andre, we are launching Cinco de Mayo, Midnight's Edge in Espanol, and Alex is going to come on and do an interview with us that week in Spanish también.
Yes, that will be very, very cool. I'm looking greatly forward to the launch of that, and to all the awesomeness that is sure to follow, because then Midnight's Edge Espanol is going to have a mix of translated Midnight's Edge content, which of course then will be in Spanish, plus new original content. So that's going to be a blast, and look forward to having that link up for you all to subscribe to very, very soon, prior to the hard launch.
Yeah, we got our schedules down. We're booking interviews as we speak. Some exciting stuff. I might have even another big musical guest for that launch party. But yeah, we're working on subtitles. We're working all that out. So if people don't know Spanish, they can still follow along. And we are also too. If there's anyone out there interested in becoming part of the crew, hit me up. If you speak Spanish, if you have a love for stuff that Midnight's Edge covers, hit us up. But yeah, lots going on, Andre. Going on.
Lots of cool stuff happening there. So we have something very cool in store for you. So something that's not so cool is this super chat from Stephen Otten, and that's not Stephen's fault. It's just a message that he is the bearer of. So do not shoot the messenger. Sadly, most of the missing footage from Event Horizon was destroyed due to improper storage practices. We are not likely to see it now. Well, that freaking sucks. Yeah, that sucks. But thanks for letting me know that, so that I can adjust my expectations.
It does
however
suck.
Painful it may be to do so. And Xenobite says, have you seen the Mountain Dew Gremlin commercial? I have never seen any such thing. Paulie, have you?
That sounds oddly familiar. Like I just got jolted back to my childhood, to my teens. But it was my teens, so all that stuff was blurry. But yeah,
that's only a sign that you had some awesome teenage years.
Had a good time.
Yeah. All right. With that, also check out our good friend Manny Summers' channel again for a great interview with Kamran Pasha in not too long from now. And check out the Latino Slant and stay tuned for more Midnight's Edge in the morning. And of course, we're going to have we've been so busy behind the scenes that we haven't had time for regular video content. but that's coming very, very soon. So we have some great stuff coming for you in terms of like regular videos, maybe tomorrow or the day after that, and then it's going to be full force again rest of the month. So yeah, lots of cool stuff happening. With that, I want to say thank you to you, Paulie, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Of course, thank you to Gary J. Tunnicliffe. It's always a pleasure to have him on. He's like one of our favorite recurring guests. He has so many stories. He's such a cool guy. So it's a blast every time to have him here. And also thank you every single one of you in the chat, everyone who supports us by sending super stickers, super chats, becoming members. That really does mean a lot to us, because that is really what helps us keep going and do what we do. So we couldn't do it without you guys. And with that, I wish you all a great day. And I would say that this is where we should have some koalas in the rain.
Yeah.
But sadly, I don't have that.
Oh no!
We're gonna have to make do without the koalas today. But maybe Paul, maybe you can sing it.
All right, here we go. We'll see you guys soon. Koalas in the rain, no F's given. Koalas, koalas, koalas in the rain, no F's given. Okay, good night. Goodbye, everyone.